we thank you that we live in a country where we have the freedoms that we have. And thank you for those who sacrificed and served over the many years to give us these freedoms, and help us, Father, as the elected officials to understand them and lead in a way that reflects those freedoms as well. We thank you for all the blessings we have. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Jay, will you say the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all. Roll call. Councilman Licciardi,
Here.
Councilman Messier is absent. Councilman Bourget.
Here.
Council Vice President Williamson. Here. Council President Goslin.
Here.
Quorum is declared.
Councilman Messier's flight has been delayed, so he was planning on being here, but didn't happen. Just make sure it's plugged in. Pull the plug out, plug it back in.
Let's speak louder.
We'll all share. All right, ordinances, second reading of ordinance amending Appendix C traffic ordinances, Douglas Street.
Move the ordinance.
Was here,
Do I have a second?
second reading,
I'll second.
Moving second now,
second reading,
just to correct the signage on Douglas Avenue.
correcting the signage in the Douglas Street area.
Any questions from the council? Any public comment on this ordinance? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
I'm not going to vote on this because I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Councilman Bourget?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay. Appointments and resignations. Request from James Jackson for appointment to the zoning board as alternate member for term to expire July 2027.
Move the name of James Jackson as an alternate to the zoning board.
I'll second it.
Moving second, discussion? I just don't see his attachment for his application on here.
It was there.
Was it?
I
It's
didn't
not,
have it either.
it's not on the town. Is it on the Secretary of State's, but it's not on the actual?
It was with the attachments that got sent with the agenda. I do know that.
Sorry. Catch the correct date out of the same packet you guys got.
I'm just afraid that somebody online doesn't see it. I know we got it, but I don't see it here on the West Warwick page website. So if we can add it later.
You turn the volume up. Nobody in this place can hear you back here.
Well, I'm speaking into the microphone and I don't know what more I can do.
Volume thing there, Mark, isn't it?
Crank it up, Mark. Actually, turn the AC off. It's in open windows. It's 70 degrees.
Not even, I don't think.
Oh, did they attach it down below instead?
Yeah. No, it's not there either. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, for the record, we do have copy of all that and we'll have it attached to the agenda at a further date. Any questions on that?
Well, it
Well-
is on there.
Yes, it's on our agenda.
No, I'm saying even on clerk base. If you go down to, somebody said it, I didn't pay to see who it was who said it, but upcoming appointments, it says sewer use board review. If you click on that, it brings up his application.
Yeah, but he's not applying for sewer use board.
Yeah, no, I'm just
review.
saying, but that's where it ended up.
Yeah.
So out of an abundance of caution, should we wait and do that next time?
I don't think that the application being attached to the agenda is mandatory for open meetings, just the fact that the application is on there. I mean, it's,
But again, out of an abundance of caution.
He applied back in June, I believe. So June 23rd. So unless there's a need on the zoning board for an alternate to be appointed tonight, you can continue it to your next meeting to make sure the resume is there.
So I guess I would amend my motion to table until the next meeting, so we're sure that it's attached where it needs to be attached. So there's no questions, no issue. I certainly believe Jim would do a great job, but
Have a second? I don't have a second to table. So All in favor?
I'm in favor. I'm in favor of the
Favor.
appointment.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Point, yeah.
I'm in favor of the
I
appointment.
don't-
So we're not going to table it. We'll move forward. So all I need is, I didn't get a second to table it, so there's still a motion on the table to approve Jim Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
It's okay. Business licenses, request from STB Inc. doing businesses Rhode Island Homemade Donuts for a victualling license, request from Friends of Troop 31 Crompton for raffle license, and request from XWA Entertainment for entertainment license for event to be held at 100 Factory Street on September 18th, 2022.
Move the business licenses.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comment? Any public comment on these licenses? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
New business, legal counsel report and discussion regarding 2022 legislation governing accessory family dwelling units.
Al?
Members of the council, I previously sent you a report on this. And I had originally intended to come before you tonight with a proposal. I've discussed this matter with a number of attorneys and zoning people. It is such a mess that I'm tonight just going to ask you to listen to what is going on and give me time to discuss this matter further. It doesn't go into effect until January 1st of 2023. We in West Warwick have a accessory family dwelling unit provision in our zoning code. It enables somebody who has a single family primary residence that wants to bring a member of the family in because of age, because of health, or for whatever reason, in their property. We put in very strict regulations about it's got to be a single family dwelling unit. It's got to have separate egress and access. All of it, I gave it to you in my report, all of our regulations. I've had a chance over the weekend to look at 21 different ordinances throughout the state. There's maybe 10 of them that are similar to ours, and I'll compare ours with any one of them. This has worked wonderful. The big concern, and I might back up and say that of our zoning board's work, the vast majority of it deals with accessory dwelling units, not variances, not subdivisions, accessory dwelling units. And the big concern is that even though we have a provision that says when Ma is no longer living there, you got to let the building office know, and it goes back to a single family residence. That doesn't happen. The next thing we know, we got a rental there. Every house on the street is single family, except for that one. That's an apartment. So we've been very fortunate in the control we've put in place on this. The legislature this year has basically said, forget it. The first thing they did was they took the word family out of the definition. They're now accessory dwelling units. So when I asked David to put me on the agenda for tonight, he sent an email to me and said, do you mean my son can live in my garage? And my answer was not only your son, but I can live there. And no longer does it have,
500 a month.
Made you nervous.
not only does it no longer have to be attached, it can be separate. And my notes here of what the new legislation will provide. The accessory dwelling unit no longer required to be occupied by a family member. The primary residence no longer limited to a single family house. You can have multifamily with accessory dwelling units.
outside you cannot require infrastructure improvements like a separate water attachment, a separate sewer attachment, or an expanded septic system. If your house is on a septic system and you're now bringing in 2 more units with 4 people, we can't do anything to force that person to fix the septic system. You cannot impose, and this one I love, you cannot impose unreasonable dimension requirement, but they don't tell you what unreasonable is. It's just you can't do it unreasonable. You cannot require a lot that's larger than it normally would be. No matter how many people are in there, you can't require more than 1 extra parking space. So if you're going to put 4 people in there with 4 cars, we can't say you have to have 4 more parking spaces. Statute says only 1. It does not have to have a pre-existing home. I can buy a big lot, put my house up, and put some accessory dwelling units on it. It appears that there are no requirements for variances or setbacks. It need not be attached. It basically repeals everything we have in our ordinance, and it also takes it away from the zoning board. Can't have a special use. I'm assuming it goes upstairs to Bob to give a building permit. What his restrictions are, I don't know. I spoke with several attorneys, and a group of attorneys that does a lot of planning work. And I picked some attorneys that I have a lot of respect for, some who do my job representing zoning boards and planning boards, and also represent individuals before other planning and zoning boards privately. And they went to the legislature and they said, you know, this thing's got too many questions in it. Why don't you hold off on it? The big push from what they've all told me is that this has come under the guise of making more accessible, affordable homes for the homeless. There are 7 different bills that passed this year, all dealing with affordable housing, all geared supposedly for the homeless. So they didn't want to hear it. The legislature pushed this thing through. As I said, I had originally planned on coming to you tonight and asking you to consider putting in a moratorium on housing, because in one section of the law, it says if you don't have affordable accessory dwelling units, you don't have to follow this law. But the last paragraph of that same section says, but you can't do anything like putting in moratoriums, so you won't have affordable housing. This is in the same section of the law that I read it, 2 absolutely conflicting paragraphs. So rather than ask the council to take any action on this tonight, I just wanted to make the council aware of what's out there, what's coming. And as I said, over the weekend, I did a lot of research on other communities, and I will be contacting the attorneys for other communities to see where they're going with it. I know next Wednesday, West Greenwich is doing the same thing we're doing tonight, just bringing it out to the public so that the people have some feeling for it. I looked at it that the moratorium, I could justify it under one section of law, but I couldn't justify it under the other section of law. And when I spoke with a couple of the attorneys, I asked them what their thoughts were, and they all said it's worth a shot, worst case scenario, if you get challenged, repeal it. But, I don't want to go that route. So I just want the council to know what's out there. Talking with someone from West Greenwich, one of their concerns is, and it's not one that we have a lot of here, but in West Greenwich, you've got all of these 1 and 2 and 3 acre lots. They're concerned that a builder will go in, put in a house and a half a dozen of these on the property. They're concerned that their well system, they don't have enough water. I was told they actually have had situations where they've had to pump water into their well system. But that's all in the unknown. That's my biggest problem tonight. If I could come here tonight and say to you, this is what's going to happen, I'd be very happy. But my concern tonight is I'm coming here and I'm giving you a lot of stuff. And when you ask me questions, I'm probably going to say, I don't know. But I just wanted to make you aware of it. And I'll call it personal contact to see where others are going. I don't know what else to do.
Any questions for Al from the council?
Well, I was contacted by a constituent of mine about this months ago when it was still going through the State House. And the concern was what you just said. And he did offer up a remedy that we can try is limit the amount of vehicles, like no overnight parking on the street. Because if they can't park in the yard, they can't park in the street, you start taking them, it kind of helps push that away a little bit. It's an idea, it's not gonna resolve the whole thing, but for me, I don't know. The legislature always does things that don't make sense to me. I don't get it, their thought process on a lot of things, going back, like when they changed larceny under to be $1,500 instead of the $500 where it was. And their excuse was everything's more expensive. Well, yeah, so you got to work harder to pay for that more expensive item, but now you just made it a misdemeanor instead of a felony. But to them, it made sense. To me, it doesn't make sense. The marijuana thing, they didn't put it on the ballot for the state to decide. They just made the decision. Then they made it so communities could possibly undercut the populace as well, voters, by saying, hey, if you don't put it on the ballot, it just happens automatically. There's a lot of stuff they do up there, it just doesn't make sense. I understand the homeless aspect of it, but for me, if you're gonna create something like this, it's gonna be where they're gonna be safe as well. If you're doing this and there's no other restrictions and no other oversight of it, then you're just creating a place that's gonna be like a flop house.
One of my concerns in particular is that I've been involved in zoning for so long, is that so much happens particularly in that area that they have absolutely no concept. And I'll give you an example. If Mary Beth wanted to put a swimming pool in and she needed a 2-foot setback for it, and 200 feet from her boundary was the corner of a lot in River Farms. And it was an unoccupied lot. Not only would she have to give notice to the association, she has to give certified notice to everybody in River Farms that she's looking for 2-foot setback for her swimming pool, because they said if it's a condominium, everybody in the condominium gets notice, 150 some people that she's got to send a registered letter to. And I found one of my concerns here, maybe it's because I've been doing this for so long, is the zoning. And this one really, and I think and I'm guessing, but I think, Mark, in your ward is probably where, because of the newness of it, the lots are bigger and the probably more area for it. Yeah, I wish I could tell you more.
The thing I was talking to Al about is these small houses have become a new trend too, where, and if that starts putting, you don't have to put a 2,000 square foot house on, you can put up a 400 or 500 square foot house, 2 floors, and it's pretty much what's there, the tiny
Right,
houses.
right,
And that's what's going on across the country, especially like in the San Francisco area, California area. So, that's something that could happen here also. Just to give you,
I will report back once I've seen what I come up with. I'll be doing it this week. I went through a number of ordinances, checked 21, I think it was, and I found those communities that have the ordinances very similar to ours that I geared for the accessory dwelling unit attached to a primary dwelling unit. And I'm going to stick with those that are similar to us, contact the attorneys and say, what do you think of doing? I don't know what else to tell the council to do.
So you seem to, what you sent to us said that it was sort of an all or nothing. And in my mind, there probably are facts and circumstances on each case that should be considered. So,
I backed off my original.
okay,
The deeper I got into it, from my first approach to it, this was something we just can't have. But then the more I got into it, the more I studied the language. And the one that threw me was when I looked at, as somebody pointed out earlier tonight, that when I looked at one section of the law where the first paragraph says, if you don't have it, if you don't have accessory dwelling units in your community, this doesn't apply. And then the last paragraph of it says, but you can't put in moratoriums or take them out. So that's was when I backed off. And
any questions from the council for Al?
Al, when other communities are doing this, they're going through the same thing. Are you going to just keep us updated? Because I'm
Yeah,
sure more and more things will come out and you'll hear more things prior to us.
what I intend to do is starting this week, with those communities that have, I'm only going to stick with the ones that have ordinances very similar to ours,
Mhm.
because the ordinances go all over the lot. But I've got a number of them that are almost identical to ours. And I intend to call the attorneys, the zoning attorneys for those communities and say, hey, what are you guys doing? And I don't know where it's going to go, Jason. It may be going to some kind of when we had the thing from Portsmouth, all the attorneys in the area ended up doing something about it. I don't know. But at this point, the only thing I can think of is trying to find out what others are doing. I don't want to be the guy that's saying, this is where we're going when I've got too many questions.
Okay.
does the League of Cities and Towns have any opinion or any discussion on this?
Generally the same discussion that the solicitor had given, and obviously the primary point, I know homelessness has been mentioned, but their spin on it was just to get some communities that have the larger houses with a lot of accessory units. By doing this, allows them to get closer to the 10% requirement in their communities where, we're at that.
I have been led to believe that we are not, we're exempt from the 10%. I don't know that, but I know I've talked to Elaine and to Mark that the purpose of this, or the alleged purpose of this, is to bring all the communities into the 10% of affordable housing. There's, all kinds of rumors.
Any other questions for Al? Thank you for the update, Al.
Thanks, Al.
Just
We will save it for public comment. Save it for public comment.
discussion of ice rink scheduling, usage, and payment procedures.
Jay, you asked for this to be on the agenda.
Yeah. So first of all, I apologize for not being here last week. Unexpectedly, I was stuck in traffic for many, many hours. But anyway, so I watched the meeting and I know a lot of questions came up from the council as to why I put it on and all that. So here is why. So I received a phone call from Paul Faria, who is the president of the Central Rhode Island Knights, and they're the house recreation league, you call it for hockey. And it's about a 15-minute conversation, and he expressed his fear of his time in another rink was gone. They closed the rink, so he was losing time, and he needed a place to play. They need more time here. So, not to get into the inner workings of the department, he did mention a contract that came. It was a request that came before the council prior to Mary Beth and Mark. So that's why I put it on the agenda. It was an FYI for everybody and to clear up any issues and any rumors, as we know rumors begin, that have gone around. So we actually debated on the contract because he was telling me it was a 5-year contract and I said no. And 99% of me said no, and that 1% said maybe I'm wrong. So I had emailed our marketing director for a copy of the contract. So I put usage, scheduling, and payment procedures on there because that's what the contract requires. So it is a 3-year contract. I'm not going to rehash last week's meeting. I know a group was put together to resolve any issues that would come up as far as scheduling and time. The only question I have is at the meeting, are we subletting the rink or fields in town or not? Because I don't think that should be allowed if that is.
So Mark, you were at the meeting. So the subletting was unbeknownst to us, and when it was subletting, the Knights went to the Saints, and keep me honest here with the names. The Knights went to the Saints and said they needed some time, and the Saints had said, well, we have this hour that we can help you with, and he charged him supposedly the same price that the town charged him, and he paid the town. So subletting, I don't want to say, I think they work together to utilize that ice time. So Laura, if you want to explain that.
So basically CRIK, which is Paul Freire.
Yeah.
When he didn't have enough ice, he went to the Saints, asked the Saints, is there anything that you can do to help me out? So the Saints then, if say they had the 5 o'clock hour, they took the team that was on the 5 o'clock hour, put it on with their 6 o'clock hour. So they split the ice then and said, here, Paul, you're in the situation where you don't have enough ice. I'm helping you out. That's all it came down to. It was the Saints were being kind. That's really what it came down to.
So you know who's on the ice at all times?
I know who's on the ice at all times.
All right, because that could become a trust issue if something were to happen, that's all.
Yeah. I mean, it was one group helping out another group. That's really what it came down to.
That's not what he said at the microphone.
No, and hold on, let me just clarify something, and Mark, you could probably say something too, but I did bump into Paul Sunday night at the night parade. He was in front of me. I stopped and talked to him. I asked if everything's good. And he shook my hand. He said, everything's great. Everything's worked out. He was supposed to write a letter to us apologizing for some of the misinformation that was said at the microphone.
Okay.
So he has not done that as of today, but Mark, correct me. I mean, you had. the
Right.
meeting
Again,
too.
that meeting was an hour. They all put their time together and resolved the whole thing within the hour. And we did clear up that miscommunication and misunderstanding. And Mr. Freya said he'd rectify that to make sure it was known publicly for everybody's own knowledge and reputation.
Okay.
And obviously, we talked about the subletting issue, and just as a matter of perception, I believe they worked out and Lori changed the administrative handling of that, where they'll report back to the organization and we'll handle the billing internally appropriately. So like you said, we know at all times who's there, and there's not that misperception or misunderstanding billing wise.
All right.
And it was made very clear to them that if they do decide to be kind and let someone else use the ice, they had to notify me immediately, and that's who will get billed for it, whoever is on the ice at the time. So say they something happened and they couldn't have a game and they asked one of the other groups, say, hey, can I borrow an hour of your time? And so they are gonna let me know and they will be billed appropriately. So no one will be billed for anybody else's ice except exactly who is on it.
And there's no like we had, just to clear it up. It's going back 5 years now, when you had come to us for.
Right. Yeah, 3 years.
for- It was,
Contract was 3.
the contract was for 3,
Yeah.
it was 5 years ago that you
Mhm.
came and asked for,
Yeah,
there's no
that was
more.
only because I wanted to keep the ice rink open.
No, I get
for
it,
the summer.
and I
Yeah.
voted for it at the
Yeah.
time, and, you know, it made sense. There are no more contracts,
There
correct?
are no more contracts. There's yearly contracts. I mean, obviously the yearly contract that they signed, but there's no multi-year contracts changing the price of any ice. So everyone will be billed the exact same price moving forward.
Okay, and the local, I believe in any local youth organization should get, say, preferential treatment, but
Right.
they belong to us.
As,
So
as
then-
part of that meeting, they all agreed after they worked out the current year, since it was only a week away from starting,
Yep.
that come the conclusion, I believe it's the end of March,
March.
they've agreed to all get together
We've already set up
forward
the meeting. I've
to
already
hash
sent
that
out
out
the
and-
invite to everybody.
and work it out.
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay.
sit down every year and, you know, I mean, there's not a lot of loyalty in hockey. They kind of jump from group to group to group. So whoever's grows and whoever shrinks, like they may not need the amount of ice that they had this year and they may need more. So whoever.
That's a common thing,
Yeah.
and you
so-
sports, I mean, you coached, you
Yeah.
know, you've all been
Yeah.
involved.
So, I mean, they shook hands at the end of the meeting. They, you know, they voiced their opinions and it was actually a really good meeting. And
So it's resolved.
actually- Yeah.
Okay,
I actually had a conversation with Paul the day after the meeting. I wanted to check in with him to make sure that he was happy, and he was very happy. He said it worked out.
Yep.
They were good to go, and he understood that if there was a change, no money should be going to another coach. It should be coming through
No.
this. So he understood that. That was the main concern
So-
that I had.
all right.
I'm like really confused on this because he stood there 2 weeks ago and said that he was being charged $240 for ice that the other team only paid $206 for.
Right.
He was
And
very clear on that. But now you're up there saying that he meant to say that it was out of the kindness of the other group's part that they were letting him use the ice and that no money was exchanged. But Mary Beth just said that he now understands that money is not supposed to go to another coach. So I'm like really confused as to what the whole thing actually is.
So the Saints paid for the ice.
Right.
It was the Saints ice. And when CRIK used that ice, they paid the Saints back for using that ice.
So there was money that
But it was
exchanged between.
240,
Is it the same
Yes,
amount?
It was
It was the
240.
same amount. So he misspoke and that's the letter that he
Yes.
Okay.
says that he's going to write to say that he was charged the right amount of ice, the right amount of money, the
How
right
much
amount of
is it
ice.
per hour?
So it is
40.
240, but in the summer, the Saints were getting charged 206.
So that's.
So he
where-
did not get any summer ice from the Saints.
That's where the
CRIK
confusion-
got his own.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so
Yes,
there's two
they-
different prices.
yes,
Depending on the
depending on the
time.
season.
right.
yes,
And one's 206
Yes.
in the summer, 240.
Right.
yes.
The on
206 was only for the Saints.
Okay.
220 is for everybody else.
Mark, the Saints was the first league.
Just didn't make
Well,
sense.
the Saints was the first league that came in when Lori wanted to keep it open for the summer hours. So they came in asking, we'll want so much ice in this contract if you can reduce the rate at 206 for the entire summer. So that happened. And now other leagues are starting to come along.
Right,
with
so now
summer
I have
ice.
a fuller summer.
So
season, I
now it's
don't need
going
to
back.
do
That was just to get
discounted
it
price
started.
anymore.
that
Like I
first
said, just,
contract.
I'm only speaking loud
Oh,
when
yeah.
this thing's not working, so
Yeah.
people can hear me. So.
Why are you yelling?
This one's extra loud, so I
that's
keep
that's
moving
the
away from it.
confusion that I
I
have.
know.
So now knowing there's two different prices, all right.
And the reason I put it on the agenda is because you two weren't here. So, and it's,
Back when I
so
was-
everybody understands what's going on,
Yep.
so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody's happy now, so
Okay.
far, but they haven't started games yet, though.
Consideration of approving town property to be used for a Matthew Dennison Memorial at the West Warwick Ice Rink.
Mark, you had this put on the agenda?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago when it was on here, I put it down for discussion. I was not expecting this to be a political football. In my opinion, that's what it's turned into, is just a big political football. It's a memorial that wants to be put on town property. So that's why I separated this with, from item number 4, because I just wanted a discussion to start. It started, it went chaotic, it went all over the place, it went to forming a committee, it went everywhere. And none of that was on the agenda to start a committee, and yet it happened. We never even had a vote on whether or not we're gonna create a new committee. And so I just wanted, nothing else that we discuss has any merit to it at all if we don't agree that this can be put on town property. So all the other discussion is neither here nor there. So I put it back down for a vote tonight to whether or not we're gonna allow it to be something to be put on town property at the ice rink at the flagpole. Take the design out of it, take Matt Dennison's name off of it, take all that stuff away from it. That's all the rest of the discussion. But if we're going to say no, we're not gonna put something on town property, then all that other discussion is useless. So I'm asking tonight if we can at least vote to see whether or not we are going to allow a private company to honor Matt Dennison and the Dennison family with memorial at the ice rink, and then the rest of the discussion can happen after that.
So, I'm gonna go back to something you started off with as a political football. You might feel that way. I don't care, and I think it's a beautiful thing that the Reed family is doing for this family. And it's been made public that they are doing this, okay? So last time where it was said anonymous, it's been made public numerous times. So again, I think it's a beautiful thing. I don't care if it's the Reeds, the Dennisons, the Goslins, the Licciardis. It all has to be done right. It's not political, and trust me, again, it is not political, and I don't ever want to use any child's name in politics, especially a child who had an untimely death. So please understand that as this council. I don't expect anybody up here to make it political. So again, it's not political, but there's processes in place to take place and to follow it properly. There are things that need to be discussed. Who's going to maintain it?
All that's
There's,
after the fact, though, whether or not
but
we're gonna
again,
agree to put it on town property.
we can agree to put, Mark, I don't think any council person, including Councilman Messier, who was here, and I know Councilman Licciardi was at the rec committee meeting, and I know personally how he feels about recreation. So I don't think there's any council person up here who does not want this for the town. It's by far the wrong thing to say, but you might want to do it one way, but other council people, school committee, the town manager, the superintendent would all like to be involved in this. Yes, it's not school property. It's been said to us, and it's been said that the school committee should not be involved. Well, the school committee parks, the school department parks there, they play next door. All these kids in this town, and they're responsible for all these children. So again, they have concerns they like to talk about, and this can be resolved in 1 or 2 meetings.
But that's all, again, if we're not going to agree that something can be put there, none of that stuff matters. Because back on January 22nd, 2008, under discussion action, firefighter memorial located at Station 4, 110 Cohasset Avenue, motion made by Council President Giroux to approve the memorial, seconded by Councilman Padula, and unanimously approved by a voice vote. Boom, done. Boom. That was it. January 28th. There was no committees. There was no discussion.
Mark, you don't
there was
think,
no-
you don't think the fire and the police departments had their own committees in place to do this?
They may have had their own committees, and that's not the purview of the council. The council did not dictate to them, you have to have a committee.
But those firefighters and those police officers were town employees on town property.
Okay? It's
That's a
still town
different-
property with a memorial. It's not different.
All right, I'll tell you what, I vote yes to put this on town property.
Okay.
So there's your next, but the next discussion will be the discussion then.
So,
Right, and that, but
but town property, what you said, you just expanded to that exact location. I'm not willing to say yes to that until we have the input of, we've had a reputation as a town of rushing into some things. We've been criticized for that. And
Firefighter
what-
Memorial located at Station 4,
That's great.
110 Cohasset Avenue.
That's great.
Specific location.
That's great. So,
We did the
so
police memorial too.
Mhm. The town
the-
council,
the more information and the more input we get, the better and more informed decision we're going to make.
March 3rd, 2015, the town council
Yep.
gave the town manager to go ahead to move forward with the next phase. Refer to the audio for more info on this matter. The police retirees are working on it with the high school students to get a police memorial at FOP and have fundraising. Just, there's no committees, there's no nothing, it was just
There is a
approved.
committee. You just said there's a committee.
No, the retirees are working with the high school students, that's all it
To
says.
get more information.
No. it's just-
Didn't you
we're
say
doing
to
something.
get more information?
It says refer to audio for more information on
Oh,
this.
okay,
It's in parentheses.
okay. Again, I don't see how it hurts. We seem to have this sense of urgency. We're talking, a meeting has been scheduled, I believe, for September 13th. What harm does it do to get input from a number
It
of?
doesn't, but again,
What-
that's the next topic.
Well,
If we're
well, I
gonna-
think
if we're
that
gonna stay
you're putting
going
the
with
car,
agenda,
you're putting, okay, well then,
So-
if we're gonna go with the agenda, I will have difficulty. I think it's out of order. Why would you say yes to something and then form a committee? I mean, that makes no sense to me. So
Why would you form a committee if you're gonna say no?
I'm not gonna say
And-
no.
and Mark,
I'm not ready,
let me
I'm not
re-
ready to say yes or no.
let
I'm
me
ready to say
rephrase
I'd like
committee.
more information.
Let me rephrase committee, okay? We talked about it, the building official, the town planner, the town manager, the superintendent, a representation from the council just to sit in and listen, okay? Like I
And the
said,
school committee.
in a school committee, okay? Everybody can sit in one room, and obviously the Dennison Foundation and the Reeds. Everybody can sit in one room and ask those questions and get the answers, okay? Again, we can sit there and get the answers to it, okay? You may have did it. You might have got your answers, but us here as a council and the town manager and the superintendent didn't even know about it until you called them. So, at that point, it's until you called them. I
As
don't
the
know.
chairman of the rec committee, we had that meeting and you
Mr.
were.
Reed, you just can't
and-
come up and interrupt. the
And you
meeting.
were invited.
Yes, I was.
Email went out. You didn't come.
I couldn't come because there was already two council members here, and the way things are going in this election, I didn't want somebody to file something with the ACLU or the Board of Canvassers. So I pulled up and I drove away when I knew there was two councilmen already in the building.
Well, don't say,
All right, can I say something, please?
Yeah, yes.
All right. All right, I think this is, and again, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I watched it, and you get a different sense after, as you're watching the meeting, actually, than actually being present. So, I've been thinking about this since I've watched that, and trying to take the emotion out of it. It's very hard. I have two kids, the same as Dennis, Mark and Brenda's kids, same age. I have known them for a long time. And whatever I say tonight, I'm not trying to minimize anything. Please don't take it that way.
Absolutely not.
As a councilman, I'm trying to take this as a project. A project came before the council, similar to another project, the Factory Street Playground, the playground at the River Point, or something about recent ones. The Historical Society wanted to put an addition on. They came to us with a plan in place. This is what we'd like to do. It came to us for approval. Do we want to allow them to do it? Yes or no? At that point, and this is, again, I'm a recreation director. If this came to me, this is how I'd handle it. It comes before the council for a stamp. Yes, you can do it. Okay, at that point, like the Historical Society gets put in the hands of Tim. We met, myself, Tim, the town manager, and two members of the Historical Society, just to see the logistics of this and the legality of it. Again, when it came before the council, we approved it and went back in their hands. And also the hands of the building official to make sure the codes are, nobody's in violation. The DPW director at the time, because there's going to be issues there. And I believe the town planner. We weren't involved. We got, okay, there's going to be a dedication on this date. You're all welcome to come. We'd like to see if somebody wants to speak. And that was it. And I'm trying to take that the same way. You have a human element in it now. And with that, it's where it's, you put your pros and cons, your positive and negatives. And when I first heard about the rumor of this, I spoke with Dave, and the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, what about all the other high school kids that died? And it's pretty narrow-minded at the time. And since then, I began to contemplate what benefits this would be. And this, we have a blank slate in front of us. There's an open field, there's a blank canvas to recognize, it depends how creative you want to be, to recognize any child that passed away while in the West Warwick school system, any teacher, administrator, council person, fireman, DPW worker, you do all of that. You know, but that's a separate project. This project has come before us, and that's the item on the agenda, correct? Because I know I push the limit sometimes and you shake your head at me and I get it, but this is the only item on the agenda. So, and again, we had a recreation meeting and this was the only item on the agenda. And to be honest with you, the recreation committee was appointed to deal with projects and items.
That's the next item. So on the next item, right now, again, trying to bring the focus back to our agenda item. Our agenda item is, are we going to approve something to be placed? It doesn't even have to be the design that was put in there from last week on that piece of property, so that this can be moved forward with whatever committee decides that we decide is going to be doing it. That's the only thing on the agenda is, are we going to allow town property to be used?
All right, I'll make a motion to vote then,
I'll second it.
because I want to talk about the next time.
Again, town property in general, I'm for it. A specific piece, not yet, until I get input from others that have a stake in the process.
So this says West Warwick Ice Rink, so just to make that clear.
Mhm.
I don't think it'd be fitting anywhere else.
No,
If he was a hockey player, if he was a football player, it'd be in
No, I,
football field,
Well,
you know, so.
I'm not disagreeing with that. Again, I said it earlier, I'm in favor of this project. Like I said, I don't care who's doing it. It's not political
At all.
at all. Just want the proper procedures, like you did, that was your ward for the fishing pier. You came in right after the fishing pier, but you made sure things were done right. The library, well, now the Historic Society, you were involved because it was in your ward and you were understanding and you want to be part of just a group to
I was-
discuss the logistics.
Right, I was kept
And
up
that's
to
all I
date,
want to see is
right.
the logistics discussed, worked out, and move forward. They could start, once the meetings are done and the logistics are set up
I agree.
and approval of the town, have at it, go do it. I think it's a beautiful thing for the town, absolutely beautiful. And I think it's a beautiful thing that the Reeds are doing.
So,
But I will say, it's very difficult as, you know, and Derek, please listen up here, because as the chairman of the rec committee, he was sitting here making decisions as he's also part of the family that is funding it. Wait, no, Mr. Reed, don't. I understand that. But again, if I was funding this project as a council person, I'd expect all of you to tell me to recuse myself, because why should I be making the decisions without the leaders of this town making those decisions also? I understand we were appointed, but you also got to look at who's funding it. You know, and again, as the chairman, that should not have been a decision by the chairman.
so
I don't think,
we're on, hey, to get back to the agenda. Because I like to say something about the next item, but I'm waiting. So are we on?
You've got a motion.
Motion to vote.
You got to vote. So right now,
We're on 03
you're voting.
on number
Yes.
3.
Right, and it says.
Voting
it says
on
at the
what?
ice rink.
It says
again,
consideration approving town property to
not
be
the
used by the
flagpole,
Matthew
that's not
Dennison
the-
Memorial at the West Warwick Ice Rink.
that's not the flagpole. That's not right in the middle there. That says the ice rink. So again, I'm not sure what the rush is. If we have a meeting scheduled for next week, I don't understand what the rush is.
It's not a rush. I've been, and again, Mr. Dennison, I am very sorry your family is going through this, and I'm very sorry they're going through the additional stuff that this town is putting you through with this. Because it's a very simple thing, in my opinion, to just approve it. and then let the processes that are already in place take over from there. So, Mr. Dennison, I am very sorry about this. So it's at the ice rink. Obviously, we're not gonna put it on the roof of the ice rink. Okay, I think was made clear from the last meeting where it was gonna be with the design that was put there. In the discussion that happened from Brian, I can never say his last name right, that's why I don't say it. So,
Muio, I think, but
so it's very clear where it was gonna go when it says the ice rink. I think anybody who heard the last meeting knew it would be at the flagpole. So I apologize, I didn't put flagpole.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
aye.
Ayes have it.
I'm sorry, can you just clarify?
Oh,
3-1.
I'm sorry.
No,
I just wanna make
I'm
sure.
not going to,
Tom.
I'm not going to argue with
Take
it.
your
I
seat, please.
disagree with
No, I
that.
Save it
just
for
wanna
public
check it,
comment,
right?
thank you.
So
Public
it may
comment on
change.
items.
Save
Yeah,
it for public
we-
comment, thank you.
Yeah, we can't say yes or no to some.
That changes from item to item.
Well, it shouldn't have.
Can I just ask a question, because I couldn't hear, was it approved? Is it?
Approved.
Ayes, I couldn't-
3-1.
Consideration of instructing the town manager to disregard forming a committee for the Matthew Dennison Memorial.
So this is also on the agenda for me, because to me, it's separate and apart. One of the things that was made clear to me is we have a rec committee. We have a rec committee for a reason. And this is part of the rec committee's responsibilities. And if you look back again in town history, August 17th, 1999, there was some type of a different type of committee back then. Memo from the town clerk advising that the commemorative designation and memorial dedication committee unanimously approved the motion passed by the West Warwick Sewer Commission at their meeting held on April 20th, 1999 to dedicate administrative building at the wastewater treatment facility in memory of Fred Angie O'Lily. I'm sorry if I messed that last name up.
Angela Lee.
Angela.
Lily.
So again, historical, we had something there. Fast forward up to March 18th, 2003. Councilman Constantino asked the acting council president about a committee for building a memorial and wanted information on it. The acting president explained that there is a park committee, rec committee, meeting tomorrow night to discuss different aspects of the memorial and try and organize somewhat the report back to the council. These memorials, I mean, this is not something new for this town. And we have a rec committee that handles this. Councilman Licciardi explained to me a lot of the stuff and how things move forward when it goes off the rec committee. It goes through DPW, it goes to the building official, it goes to all the people that you guys saying are the stakeholders in this, and I agree with that. To make sure that we keep it within the specs that it's supposed to, that is confined to an area that meets all the laws, that meets all the accessibility for the handicap accessibility stuff, all that. We have all this stuff already in place. We don't need a new committee to do it when we have a rec committee in a building official's office and a DPW director. We already have all this stuff. And on the rec committee, there's a council representative and a school committee representative.
Can I cut you off for a minute?
Sure.
Thanks. Because if I was at the meeting last time, I tell you, I'm a little offended by this only because I serve on the rec committee. I've been on the, as the council liaison, but I've been on the committee since '04. And this is kind of the avenue that things have taken place. And first of all, I don't think we need a committee at all. But if we do, like you said, we have one in place. School committee rep, council rep. I believe 4 out of the 5 wards are represented from 5 people. We have deemed the point person for any project, which we deemed back when the first meeting after we appointed and then reappointed the recreation committee was the interim DPW director now. He's the point person for these projects. And it's a public meeting, so anybody can come. So I think it's already in place. And I'm not going to say the rec committee should be the end all and be all of anything, but it's a public meeting. So if additional school committee members want to come, additional council members want to come, I have no problem if there's a process to this and I'm there and you show up and you want to show up, I'll back you off one night. You know, it's about working together, but again, I don't think a committee's even needed if we, I think a committee is going to be needed if we want to change the project. And looking at what the design on this, it's all professionally done. I had questions on it at the meeting, like maintenance. But that's all going to get resolved by the employees of the town. That's what we pay them for. And that's, the point person would be, I'm assuming, the DPW director. The planner may get involved in the building official. And everybody else can have different ideas, but this has come to us at no cost. So it's not like we have to, like when we wrote the grant for Crompton, which Mark did most of that grant writing, and we received the grant, just to throw that out there. That's different. We're applying for something. We're applying for funds. We mean the matching funds. We don't have to do any of that. And I've talked to other people in different towns, and they're like, wow, how did you get that? Because we'd like to do something. And especially as a councilman, when it's not all about money, but money is involved and there's no funds from the town. It's a good thing. We talked about again, I'm probably thinking a little bit differently than some of the other people in the committee that talked, but I'm looking at this is going to be front and center. It's going to dress up the property. Okay. It's going to be a statue of one of our own who was killed. So when people come up to this and look at it, I know my son is going to look at it and who is that? I'm going to get all these different questions. My daughter knew him. So she's going to walk away with something different. My other son, in 10 years from now, may have different questions on what happened. And to me, it's an awareness. It goes beyond drinking and driving. It goes to, face it, you're 17, 18, and we've all been there. We all have kids. 17, 18-year-olds are invincible. Nothing can hurt them. So and I haven't, but because anyway, if your child is getting into a car with someone who's been drinking, there's a lesson. If a child was a driver, there's a lesson. And again, I'm not looking at this as your son as a statue at all. I just think it's going to be an awareness to our community. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
And I need to speak out. I feel the school committee and the school leadership, I believe, do have a say. I know that neither of you think that, but they are responsible for the welfare, the safety, and the mental health of our students. And if they have concerns, I think we should at least listen to what they have to say. And this excludes them from that. And I struggle with that a great deal. It impacts the school community. And to disregard, not that they have a vote, but at least seek their input and allow them to have their say. How hard can that be?
But it's going to have a different impact on everyone.
You made an accusation that I really.
Accusation?
Yes, you said that I don't think that they need a voice, that you said.
I'm sorry,
that we
I
think they
certainly
should be
didn't mean
left out.
that, but
Well, that's what you said.
I did. I
okay? And
apologize.
I never said the school committee, I actually apologized to Karen because I didn't inform her before the last meeting. Mark knows because I did it in his office when we had a meeting
Okay,
last week.
that's great.
okay?
I'm glad to hear that.
So I do think they need to be part of it. But again, the rec committee has a school committee member on it. A second one can show up. The superintendent can show up. Anybody can show up at these meetings. They're open. Anybody can have input. There's public discussion. So it's not like it's being shut down. I'm just saying we don't need yet another committee to do this. You said you've been on it since '04. What I just read to you is from '03. '03, they were doing it that way. '04, they were doing it that way. Why are we going to change it in 2022?
So again, my limited experience here, we had those committees and those people who were responsible, and we wound up with the Factory Street Playground, which cost us a lot of money.
No,
Yes,
No.
wait.
No, that was not the rec committee.
Well,
That
no,
was not the rec
No.
committee.
but why
That
not?
was a special committee that screwed it all up.
no, well, hang on. No. You're both wrong. I'm sorry. I was the liaison from the council on the rec committee at the time. And
Okay.
this is what happened. We tried to meet numerous times. We had a person on the committee who doesn't live in town. He's over 90 years old. And
Okay.
he couldn't be off the committee until a letter came in. Correct me
Okay.
if I'm wrong, right?
I remember
Which
this
wasn't
happening
going to
afterwards.
happen. So now you're down to 4 people.
And if,
And now we have another vacancy. So now you're down to 3 people.
if they
and we
didn't
can
move
nev-
forward with the project, they were gonna lose the grant.
Correct. And we
Right.
couldn't have a quorum. So, and believe me, I tried like hell to get this committee back together. So then it came down to, the town planner said to me, we're gonna lose the grant if we don't act on it, because we've had the grant for a number of years. So at the time, we ended up having a quorum. We met, we had one meeting right here in the council chambers regarding the playground. Many questions were asked. The town planner at the time wasn't here at the meeting.
Okay.
So, and it's not his fault,
No,
he just wasn't
I'm
here.
not looking to,
So the chairman of the committee at that time was going to ask the questions to the planner and then report back to us in the second meeting. Second meeting was scheduled in the town manager's office. It consisted of myself, Chris Messier, Mike Gorvin, 2 members of the committee, and Ernie Zimalinsky, the town manager at the time. We didn't have a third. So we couldn't meet. At that point, a committee was formed. I'm not going to throw out names because I'm not quite sure who was on it, but it was nobody from the rec committee at that point. The Factory Street Playground went forward. Issues happened. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but it wasn't the rec committee.
I'm not suggesting it was the rec committee, but something happened in that process that it just.
We couldn't find enough people for a quorum. That
Okay,
was the issue.
Okay,
And-
all right.
and
I- and
I just
again,
want,
and I
I just
don't
want
know
to
that-
point out
A
something.
separate committee was
So-
formed,
so Mark-
and that's what went south.
Throughout all the years between the fire memorial, the police memorial, the youth center, there was always some sort of committee and always some town involvement, and there was always talk. Now, even with the Historic Society, Police Memorial, Kevin O'Connell would come up here every month, give a report. Jerry Tellier would come up here, give a report. When the youth center was being built, that was prior to my time, but there was reports given to the town council. And Alan, if I remember, you were on that committee. So there's building, you go look at the town paper right now, West Coventry's looking for building committees. There's a committee. Okay, maybe reword the word committee. Okay, there's a meeting scheduled next week between all parties. And maybe that all could be hashed out by next week and move forward. We approve that we're gonna put it on property, but once we discuss, or whoever's in that meeting discusses the concerns, questions, the building official might have questions. What's the proper anchor? What's the, can it tip over? Can it be stolen? Who's responsible? God forbid if it gets damaged. Those are all the questions that have to be answered. And it can't be answered in here. There's other questions that have to be asked too. And again, reword the word committee. Just a group of people, the responsible parties. And I don't think that's snowballing anything. I think that's moving forward, getting it going.
We
I
have a
mean,
committee.
again,
Can't get asked all those very same questions. Don't need a separate committee. That's my only point.
was every question answered at the rec committee the other night?
Not every question was asked because it wasn't a meeting to discuss this
Right.
as far as like finalizing any kind of design plans or anything else, because once everything goes through the rec committee, then it's gonna go to the building official's office, if I'm understanding it correctly.
And I can tell you now, I asked for the recording of the rec committee's meeting so I can listen to it.
Yeah.
There is no recording. I have to wait. Well, I'm sorry, I went to the town clerk and asked, so I don't know who has the minutes but I'd like to hear what happened in that meeting. Okay, I did not attend for personal reasons. I pulled up here and
Again, I think
You know.
that is a question, I wanted to be there too, and I know that the 2 of you were there. I'm not, you can't have 3 and have a quorum, and I'm sorry that that's.
We
an
can't
issue.
make decisions.
So can I ask Tim, if,
And-
no,
and
hang
maybe we
on.
need legal.
So
What's the
legally,
difference if we- one second, Jay. What's the difference if we create a separate committee that we all can't be there at the same meeting on anyway? What's the difference?
I'm not saying, we're not gonna be able to be there.
Right, but it's no different than a rec
The
committee.
the most that can be there is 2.
Exactly, so it's
So-
no different than a rec committee.
why can't,
A separate committee or a rec committee, it's the same thing. You can have more
why
than 2.
can 5,
That wasn't
can,
the question.
can more than 2 councilmen be, but not talk though?
But again, what good is that? If I have questions, do I gotta pass them to you in a letter? Because that's gonna be filed against me. I know it is.
Pass notes back and forth.
You're always a council,
Right.
Right.
right? So since you've appointed a body and you appear in public and you speak in front of it, just like your situation, you had to get an ethics commission ruling to
Mhm.
allow you to do what you need to do. So you
That's what
can't,
we
you can't
don't-
have all five attend a meeting because
Even if,
it becomes a council meeting.
And
Okay,
again,
all right.
Jay, I want to be honest. If there's a group of people upstairs making a decision with the group, the Dennisons, the Reeds, and everybody
Everybody's
agrees upon
comfortable.
everything, I'm good to go. I don't have to be there. You know, as I said in my email to all of you this week, I said, I'd like to be part of the meeting, but if you are going to be there, you're as the representative of the rec committee, and I know it's your ward, but believe it or not, the ward that it's going in is in Ward 1. So it's a question. So again, I just want it hashed out, everything, the Ts crossed, the I's are dotted, and that's it.
And the rec committee can do that. So Tim, with what you
You
said.
keep saying that, but it doesn't happen.
but what doesn't happen though?
Well,
Like, what doesn't-
So let me ask a question, right? You don't want to have a meeting with the town manager and the superintendent next week, but you want to put it forth back to the rec committee. But you don't want to discuss it next week with everybody and then bring it back to the rec committee?
No,
When's your next rec committee meeting?
Whenever they schedule it.
I'm
Schedule
sa-
it 2 days from now if they want to.
what I'm saying is, in the past practice, what's come before the council, we've agreed to either say yes or no. If we say yes, then it's up to the people in the town, like I just said, I'll use the names, Jeff, Bob Ashland, the building official, the town planner, for them to ask the questions. And of course, Mark's gonna be involved somehow as the town manager.
And that meeting is scheduled
So-
for next week. Why is it such a big hassle to have that meeting? Why is everybody against that meeting?
I honestly feel if we have a committee, that the rec committee should be the committee, because we have appointed them. That's how I feel.
But you don't feel all those players should get in one room, talk about it? And you're gonna be there as the rec committee chairperson, if you want to be.
no, he's not rec.
I mean, rec committee representative from the liaison.
Representative of the
I'm
council,
sorry.
yeah.
You're going to be there if you can make it there, right? And why can't you all get in one room, hash it out, and then put it back on the rec committee's meeting? What's so hard about that?
What I feel with this, if that were the case, you brought it up and it's in your ward, then I don't need to be there. I already know how I feel. I think it should go where it is. I think we pay towns workers to ask these questions, to make sure it's done right. And that's the faith that I have. And it comes to us and
And again,
we'll
if
show up
that-
at a
if that
dedication, you
meeting's
know?
Scheduled for next week, what's the harm of having that meeting?
I don't see what questions couldn't be answered by us.
But we can actually, if you have the superintendent and a school committee chairperson there that have asked questions, they can ask them in the group, what's wrong with that? I don't think they're trying to dictate or change
No,
anything.
and I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying
So
anything
what's the-
negative
so-
about the school committee at all, or the
I didn't say- I
superintendent.
didn't say you were, but what's the harm in just having the meeting next Tuesday? I don't understand that.
Because I think, I'm looking at this more of, I know I talked about the human element, but it's a monument that's gonna be built. There's a statue that's gonna be part of that monument. And I'm fine with that,
Okay,
you know, and I think that's really what it is. And then the human element comes in after it's built. That's what I think.
So. I agree, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. We have a.
I think it's very simple.
Come on. Come on.
We have a rec committee, we appointed them. We have a rec committee, we appointed them. The players that you want can still go to a rec meeting and have the same conversation they have at next Tuesday's meeting. So I don't understand why we need to reinvent the wheel to get this done and keep it going in motion. So I don't understand what the issue is, as far as that goes. You had mentioned, you know, if we all get together, well, I'm gonna speak for myself then, because I violated that rule when we all were at the St. Patrick's Day parade and all stood together and walked down the street together.
So you were discussing government business?
No, but that's not discussing public government business if people are just sitting in an audience.
Oh, I didn't say that. I said if five of you go to the meeting and you all stand up and you approach the microphone and you speak to the microphone to the body, it becomes a council meeting.
Gotcha. All right, that I understand. Okay. All right. 'Cause Jay asked
Government business.
if we're all in the same room, is it a meeting? That's what I asked.
No, no.
Okay.
So if,
Clarification.
again, because I'm not understanding. So if the five of us, well, this could be 5 minutes of the school committee. There's a meeting held and the 5 of us show up and nobody says a word. Is that a council meeting?
That's a different issue. You haven't said anything.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm,
No, you're coming to a.
All right, I'm
meeting,
misunderstanding.
You're either attending the meeting as a spectator or you're participating in the meeting. If you're attending the meeting as a spectator, all 5 of you can sit anywhere you want and watch. Once you begin participating in the meeting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's how the board takes what you're doing, not what you say or do. But
So-
how they take it, because if you've appointed them, perhaps they're
Yeah.
thinking you're trying to intimidate them by what you're saying. Or
Understandable,
you're trying to
yeah.
direct them to go in a particular direction. All
So
right?
if-
You're supposed to avoid that because you
Yeah.
appoint, you don't interfere with it.
so if 5, again, if more than 2 were at a meeting and all 4 of us are at a meeting and Dave speaks, is he representing all 4 of us?
Again, are you all sitting
No.
together? Are you been talking to one another in the audience? Dave comes up as a spokesperson. Who knows?
So if all
It
4
all
of us,
depends on- it all
Robert's
depends on the
Rules of
board.
Order, I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
What the board thinks that you're in front
Please
of.
sit down.
all right, so
Alan,
again,
please sit down. I'll have to ask you to leave.
I'm just trying to clarify this. If all 4 of us sat in 4 different corners and we didn't speak, we didn't do sign language, we didn't nod our heads or anything,
You're a
right,
spectator.
nothing.
Right.
And 2 people could speak at that point or none? Because I'm not getting this, so.
It's the question of appearance of impropriety. If the people that you're speaking to, the board you're speaking to, feel that 2 of you are speaking, and you're speaking on behalf of the 5, they could possibly feel intimidated.
So you may have to say, get up there and say, I'm only speaking for myself.
So,
Again, it doesn't
So
make
let
a
me-
difference
let me
what
just
you think.
clarify
It's the person
something.
that's listening to
Mark,
you.
let me.
But that's
just-
not right, though,
let me-
because if somebody,
No, hold on.
but
Jay,
if somebody doesn't
Jay,
like what I'm
Jay,
saying, obviously it may come across as intimidating.
Jay, I don't want to shut you off.
That's
but
why,
listen.
that's why it's easier not to go to the meeting.
The reason
and
why
take
I-
Part of the meeting.
Jay, I'm
Then
gonna,
there's no problem.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
All right.
I'm gonna be honest with all of you right now. As far as individuals wanting to have a meeting to discuss things, maybe they want to discuss things that really don't feel comfortable speaking about in public. Okay? And it's just, they want to, I don't want an applause or anything like that. Again, guys, please treat each other with respect over here. Again, there are questions and concerns, and they just want to talk about it, and everybody's going to be in the same room. It's not like we're excluding anybody. And they don't want to come to a public meeting. They'd rather sit in a room and discuss those issues. And then all said and done, once everybody gets the answers that they're looking for or discussion, there could be changes. They might see it. I looked at things when stuff was said to me. I looked at it from different perspectives. I saw it from all different sides.
Right, so
And that's
do
the
I.
way we have to look
So
at it.
of course, I try and do that all the time.
We all do.
So we're gonna limit input to specific people that we deem should be there, rather than the public who.
Nope, it can come, Mark, it can come right back to the rec committee after all, it's just a meeting of the, I don't know how much more I can explain it,
Stakeholders.
No,
but
I-
if you just want to throw it out there and just do it,
No, I
Go ahead.
understand
I
what you're saying,
mean,
but
I'm one vote.
but my whole thing is we appointed these people.
I'm
And
not saying cut them out. I'm saying have the meeting that the town manager has scheduled next week. Discuss it, have another rec committee meeting, then the public can come, discuss it, whoever wants to. Unfortunately, no, not if I came up and I came to the rec committee meeting and you were up here speaking your mind, you were speaking your mind. If she was here speaking hers and I spoke mine and we had 4 different opinions or we're trying to influence a vote, that's where we would have got in trouble. Okay? And that vote might have been influenced by Mark saying, you need to do this, or Mary Beth says you
I
need to do this.
understand.
We avoided that, okay? And we just got to make sure that I don't see a harm with next week's meeting. It's 7 days away. I don't see permits being issued within 7 days. So I can't see, we've already approved the resurrection of this statue on town property, okay? There's, rephrase the word committee. It's not, you don't even have to make it a committee. I'm not saying have monthly meetings and discuss this. I'm saying get in the room, discuss it, talk it over. It can be 1 or 2 quick discussions and move forward. Put it on the rec committee, bring it back to the rec committee. I don't care about that part. It's back to you guys for a decision. We've already approved everything. The only thing I'm caring about is everybody in one room discussing it. And if by not discussing it, then what's the problem? I mean, what's the rush? I'm not saying, what's 7 days? What's 14 days? That's the only question I have. What's the difference between now and 7 days from now? None, I don't think.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I'm not looking at time at all. I'm looking at,
Time means nothing.
it's,
If time means
I'm
nothing,
looking
why
at
is it
this,
the rush?
I'm looking at this. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Because it's an additional group that doesn't need to be formed when we already have one in place. That's the bottom
Yeah.
line. We have it in place. Same people that you're talking about can speak at that meeting, can speak at the other meeting. If they're gonna say something that they don't want public, maybe it shouldn't be said at all.
And I'm,
Mr. Goslin, point of order. You're talking about forming committee, commission, et cetera. I'm surprised your solicitor hasn't brought your attention to the fact that if you as a council appoint this committee, commission, et cetera, they have to maintain minutes.
Alan,
It has to
Alan,
be public.
before you go any further, nobody ever said appointing anybody. We're just saying the town manager, representative from the town council, a representative, those aren't appointments. Those are figures of the town. Nope, Alan, please sit down because you're out of order yourself now. Thank you.
Now you're gonna get a complaint.
Thank you.
so where are we? Where are we with this?
You can vote to disband the committee, which I'm not looking for a committee. I'm looking for the meeting that's scheduled, and Mr. Manager, what do you have scheduled for next week if you want to discuss that? Because you've been very quiet over there through all this.
So there is a meeting scheduled for next Thursday at 4:30 in my office with the people that I was instructed to invite. The school committee named a few people that when they wanted to be involved with the superintendent, determined whichever of you folks want to be involved. Like you had mentioned, I'm hoping to have the legal counsel feedback from the planner, the building official, and I already had some information from the trust. More or less just to open it up there to listen to anybody's concerns, any issues, bring what I have forward, and then we can chart a path forward from there.
Who from the council is gonna be there?
That was
We can
kind of
hash
left
that out
open.
right now if you want.
I never got an email saying anything about a meeting, specific time or anything.
It went to the entire town council at
Did it went to the council?
at one shot, so, and I think I specifically put in there, don't obviously all reply to a group to have a roving quorum, but I wasn't sure who was going to do it. As you had mentioned, the representative from the rec committee, yourself as the one that brought it up, the ward where it's proposed to go. I don't feel it's my place to decide who, but obviously,
My apologies, I do have it.
Yeah,
I do
Yeah.
have it.
last Thursday, I think.
You messed up with something,
Yeah.
never mind, my apologies.
So again, if you want to hash that out right now from the council, who's gonna go to this meeting? I did say I would like to go to the meeting, but I understand you being the liaison for the rec committee, you being it's a representative from your ward and it's in your ward. So if you guys decide who wants to be there, just let me know, no more than 2. So if Mark and Mary Beth want to be there, I'm fine with that.
You said it's on Thursday,
Tuesday at 4:30.
Okay.
7 days from now.
Tuesday at 4:30 PM?
Yep.
I still think that we have a rec committee. I like to make a motion, we put it to a vote to not have this other committee.
And I don't think it's a committee, it's a meeting of stakeholders.
We called it a committee when we told Mark to form it, so.
That's
we'll keep it
okay.
as a Committee.
All right,
I'd like to make a motion to amend committee of stakeholders.
meeting of
I already
stakeholders.
have a motion.
Meeting of
I
stakeholders.
already have a motion. on the
There's a
table.
motion made by Councilman Bourget. There's been no second.
I'll second it. I think it should be at the rec committee.
And for the record, a 2 and 2 is no matter what, so just gonna make that clear now,
It's fine.
because unfortunately,
It's fine.
You just plug the microphone.
I don't know what noise.
Big Mr. Dennis. Sorry, Laura.
Justin, I don't disagree with you, but I haven't let anybody else speak on it. And
I would like to hear what he has to say, but wait till public comment, have to be consistent. And I apologize for, this never should have gotten to this.
What was the vote?
we haven't voted yet.
Oh.
And I want to take a roll call vote to consideration for instructing the town manager to disregard forming a committee for the Matthew Dennison Memorial. Councilman Licciardi?
Hang on a minute.
I think it's underneath.
I don't think we should have a second committee.
You feel the meeting should happen?
The
Next week?
meeting, I don't.
I don't think there should be a second committee, no. I think we should instruct the manager to not move forward with that committee.
So everyone's clear, you're voting in favor to disregard forming the committee.
Correct.
Okay, so you got two, you got one in.
Yes,
excuse me,
yes.
4 and 5 are yes.
Mary Beth?
No,
And I vote no. So it's no.
for no other reason than to get input from all people involved. It's a week. I think that's the right thing to do.
Can I speak as a chair?
No, at the public comment.
This is about this.
We already voted. It's over. We're on to the next topic.
Okay, but, so wait, you went 2-2.
2-2 means no.
Okay, that means no. So that's no meeting.
It failed.
So that means no meeting.
No, it means,
No,
it means
it
we're
means
not
no
going to
committee.
it means is we're
It
not going
means
to
no disbanding of the committee.
So that means. So the committee still goes on, that wasn't a committee.
It's not a
The town
committee.
manager's going to have the meeting that's
There is a
still going
meeting
on.
that's going to take place. That's all.
The meeting will
A
take place
meeting is
next
gonna take
Tuesday.
place. That's-
You've all been invited, correct?
I have been on that. The rest of my committee hasn't been invited.
Okay.
My father as a builder hasn't been invited. Just saying.
Want to move on to number 5, Sarah?
Sure thing. Claim from Adam Chang in the amount of $300.
That's get moved.
Move the claim, but we asked that he, Mr. Chang attend.
Mr. Chang is here.
There he is. Sorry for all the.
So I move the
Evening now.
claim.
Second,
Move a second. You just want to explain this to us? I know you wrote a nice letter.
So this happened in February, driving at East Grand Ave, eastbound, by Dogwood Drive. There's a pothole. It was dark night, I was picking up my stepfather to go to Logan Airport. And there's a puddle that I ran over. I flew out to my tires on the driver's side. Didn't realize it until I got to
the driver's side,
the driver's side.
in your letter, you put passenger side,
Yes, sorry, passenger side.
because I don't want to ask for this to be put back on and to not approve the claim. Because there's a couple of issues I have with this. Did you go anywhere before AAA came?
So I actually made it to my parents' house, and then right when I pulled in the driveway, the signal went on.
Where do they live?
There was nothing set.
You made it all the way to North Kingstown with 2 flat tires? And you didn't realize you had flat tires?
I did not.
You also had 4 tires changed.
Yes.
Why is the town responsible for the other 2?
So since I blew out front and a rear, I wanted to change all 4 of them. I would say that it'd be there probably $100 per tire. So $200.
You put in a claim for 300.
Plus labor.
Yeah, it was 422.92. The max you can get
Max
is
is 3.
300. So
Right.
I get that, but how flat could your tires have been if you made it all the way to North Kingstown? Because the other issue is, I mean, you had to pay the overage miles, so it was 10 miles for the tow.
Yes. So from my parents' house.
Yeah. I still, I don't see, because that's my ward. I actually live right up the street from there. I know what puddle you're talking about. It's right at the two new houses. Because I've sat up at this council complaining that the puddle's there. There's no potholes there. There's absolutely no potholes.
When it sloped up, they actually filled it the next month. I should have took photos. But they filled the 2 potholes that next month. This is way back in February. So in March, they filled two potholes.
Well, there's no puddle up there. That's on a hill in that spot. It doesn't puddle.
It was a pothole. Wasn't a well.
I know, but what you just said and what you wrote in your letter was you hit a pothole in the puddle. That's what you just stood there and said, and that's what you wrote in your letter. But there's no, yeah, I know, there's no puddle on the hill. I know where you're talking about, it's right at the entrance to the apartment complex. And it's only like this big, it's not gonna pull out 2 tires. Numerous cars go over that every day. So I personally don't see where the town's responsible, especially if you made it all the way to North Kingstown before you realize that you couldn't drive anymore. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So I have a question. Why did you write a letter to DOT?
Because that was a mistake on my part. So originally I thought it was through the state, like pothole claims.
Yeah.
And then they got back to me and said it's not a state road, so then I mailed it back to Westport.
All right. You let it pretty quick.
Huh?
You let a return letter pretty quick.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Chang? I personally, if we're gonna be responsible, I think we're responsible for 2 tires, not 4, but was
Yeah.
Jeff, as far as DPW, do you have any record of a pothole being there, or
There was.
just come on up before you come up?
Yeah, DPW.
There you go. There was pothole on East Greenwich Avenue, but I was just sitting here reading where he said it was. And he's got here just before Greenwich Place, where you and I went out a few weeks ago. There was nothing there. It was further down before the houses, actually. Before the new houses, there was a pothole. But I don't remember the exact date. I'd be lying if I told you I did, because I don't.
There's only been 2 potholes in that section. One was over by Juniper.
Right, and
up the hill,
that's
at the storm drain.
right.
But again, it's a hill.
Right, so there would be no puddling there,
The other
correct?
one is at the entrance to Greenwich Place, which is also a hill.
There'd be no puddling there either.
And that one's, like I said to you, when we drive around, that's a recurring one. We need to fix it before this winter.
Right, we need to cut the patch out,
Right, you
correct?
cut it out and do the whole thing because it's a
Absolutely.
recurring one and nobody's ever blown a tire on that one.
Can I just ask, where in North Kingstown?
Right by Woodford Junction.
Okay,
You have no pictures.
I know I didn't bring it.
And if we- Half of what his total bill was is 211.46.
So earlier in your statement, you said when you got to North Kingston, your tire lights came on.
Yes.
So if you hit a pothole in West Warwick and drove to North Kingston and you hit the potholes hard enough to pop 2 tires, I think your lights would have came on probably by Route 2.
I mean,
That's
I guess-
just
I guess
my
it
opinion.
depends on the vehicle. I mean, so it, as soon as I pulled in the driveway, the lights turned on. They were both spewing out air.
I drive a 2500 Chevy truck and I hit something on 117. And by the time I got to on the rocks and around the corner, my light was on and my tire was flat. So I think if you personally hit potholes hard enough, I don't think you would have gotten past the Showcase Cinemas at the most. To get all the way to Whitford Junction, I'd have to question that. I don't want to be the judge, jury, and executioner here, but that's a 20 mile ride after you hit 2 potholes, after you hit 2 tires in a pothole. Any other questions for Mr. Chang?
I'm sorry. This doesn't seem to jive. I'm not saying it did or didn't happen, but there's a process here. And I can't vote for this.
So this is actually on here for approval, so.
So can I, so the former DPW director talked about there was a pothole by the sewer cover. Is that the
I
one,
believe
is that the
is
one that
talking
Jeff,
about.
you're talking about?
I
That's
actually
by the
walked-
sewer cover?
Yes,
And the
Okay.
sewer cover is in the middle of the road, and that'd be on the driver's side, not the passenger side.
right. And
Which way you
that
going?
particular one, I was walking my dogs, I saw it.
No matter
it
what,
was
the
a
sewer's in the
Saturday,
middle of your car's
and I
always in the
called
middle.
Jeff, I'm sorry, I called Fred. I said, somebody needs to go out there quickly because it was a decent sized pothole. But again, it's not in a puddle, it's not, it's in the middle. There's not.
So
It's on the agenda.
In the agenda.
before it slopes back up, there is a puddle. Like
Just come on over to the
before slope-
microphone. Just come over to the
Oh,
microphone.
wow. Yeah, before the slope, there is a puddle and then the pothole after the puddle. So I don't know which one I hit. There was damage regardless.
I still don't see what, if you hit it that hard, how you made it to Wickford Junction, if you blow out your tires there. Just doesn't make sense. And your claim is for all four tires. That's the other part.
Well, I needed all four tires because I couldn't just, swap them out because it was a front and back. So I felt like I needed all four tires just so it didn't mess with the alignment. So,
Which makes sense, but we wouldn't be responsible.
Yeah, I
for it.
know, I
I mean,
know.
you were elected to get two new ones. I just don't understand how this happened on East Greenwich Avenue when you blew out two tires.
it,
You didn't realize it.
yeah.
Until,
I wouldn't-
that's quite a ways away. I mean,
Complete blowout. It was spewing out air and it was just kept going down both tires. So it wasn't like a complete blowout. So I made it to North Kingstown.
I still, I'm sorry, I can't.
Any other comment? This is to approve, so it's yay or nay. All in favor? Opposed?
No.
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 Opposed, have it. Sorry, Mr. Chang. Thank you. Have a good night.
Request from the West Warwick High School girls basketball team for tea sponsorship in the amount of $100.
I just put this on the agenda, the next two items, actually. It's that time of year, I guess. Again, a lot of these, a lot of golf tournaments. Any questions?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
David, no one made a motion for it.
Motion to approve
Sorry.
Second.
sponsorship for the girls girls.
Do one at a time. so
Yep,
that-
request for sponsorship for the girls' high school basketball team.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Approve request for West Warwick High School football team T sponsorship.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Authorization to award bid for personal escape equipment and training.
Do I have, you have to make a motion? Yes, all-
Move approval of the bid for personal escape equipment and training.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Chief? Okay,
evening.
so we were lucky enough to get a grant to get personal escape ropes for all the members on the job. So this is equipment that each member will carry with them. In Father's Day, 2005, New York City, 6 guys had to jump from a 4th floor. All 6 of them were critically injured. 2 of them passed away. It's known as Black Friday in the fire service, Black Sunday. So this is going to allow people, if they get caught, to lower themselves down 50, well, probably around 45 feet. It's 50-foot section of rope. And in addition, they can lower someone else. So we could actually use it with the harness to lower someone else down. So the equipment is about $35,000. We have some additional training. It's about $1,300 to train our in-service instructors so they can go and train the rest of the job in using the equipment. So we did go out to with an RFP and get a bid. Both of these are the lowest bidders. But we were able to specify exactly what it is that we wanted. So that's why it was strictly about the money.
Any questions for the chief?
Thank you for explaining what they are. I'm like, I have no idea.
Thank you.
Could you also use these? I'm just curious. I went to an ice training a while ago. Could you also use these for that as well?
Yes, it's a life safety rope. It could be used in several
Net
different.
extraction?
Yes, it could be used several different ways. So I'm not exactly sure what you're envisioning,
I'm
but
envisioning a fireman going into a hole that's cut into the ice to
yeah,
grab
so
somebody out.
they're not going to go in there without a wetsuit and.
No, I
you know, they-
understand.
you know,
I got you.
Probably a dry suit, actually.
But this
Get a
can be
nice
used
size.
in many different capacities.
It could be. It wouldn't be used for that because it's not floating. It's not a
Okay.
floating rope. And, I know whenever you go in the water, you want to have a rope that's going to stay high because you don't want to get it tangled in anything low, on the bottom of the water. So it probably wouldn't be used specifically for that.
Only as a last resort.
Any other comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
It's okay, it's fine. Payment authorization for LED lighting at recreation facilities from ARPA funds, Amby Smith field change order.
Move approval.
I'll second it.
Moving second, discussion, Mark?
Councilors, as you're aware, you approved in resolution 22-30, a RISE LED energy project for our recreational fields. That project has moved forward and is in excess of about 85% complete. The last remaining field is Amby Smith. When they started that a few weeks ago, RISE engineering firm discovered that the cross members there are deficient and two of the poles are structurally deficient. The cross members cannot hold the lighting equipment and the deficient poles are a safety hazard. So based on that, I had approved on an emergency basis to get the safety matter taken care of. And that material has been ordered before you tonight to request to amend that original resolution to encumber $30,380 from rescue plan funds to complete that project. Should be completed by the end of summer, early fall.
Any questions for Mark? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Authorization for the use of ARPA funds to cover the costs to the town for complying with Rhode Island Department of Health COVID-19 isolation and quarantine orders.
Move approval of the resolution.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mark?
Again, this is another American Rescue Plan recommendation or request. The American Rescue Plan funds were designed to assist communities in recovering from the pandemic. The finance director and I are recommending that we use some of the funds and encumber the amount to cover the cost of town employees that were mandated to comply with the Rhode Island Department of Health COVID-19 isolation and quarantine orders. In simple terms, there were periods of time when somebody tested positive or was a close contact when the Department of Health mandated certain timeframes of isolation or quarantines. When the replacements of those, we recovered through some grants at different percentages for the overtime replacement. But we're recommending that we use ARPA funds to actually cover the cost of the salaries of the people that were mandated to be isolated or quarantined and not perform town work at that time as a way to recover some of those lost expenses. And that amount to cover those salaries for the fiscal year of 2021 and 22 comes to $325,970.80.
So did people get paid already for that?
Our employees were paid.
Okay, so where is that? So they were paid out of the salaries
Right.
in the budget.
Correct.
So where is this 325 going?
So Kristen can probably explain it better, but essentially we'd be moving the expenses from the salary lines for those fiscal years into the American Rescue Fund
Reimbursement.
So
account.
the overages we had for overtime, which we
Right,
did
right,
have,
right. Yep.
we get to reimburse them so that it offsets that budget expense.
Okay, so since the budget cycle has passed for 2020, we can't put money back in the budget, correct?
We would just do it for fiscal year 22.
All right, okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mark? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Authorization to transfer funds to the West Warwick Library from ARPA funds.
Move approval.
Second.
Mark and Colin?
I'll let Colin get into the specifics, but I'd like to offer an amendment to what was previously posted. The original
Got to pass back to that.
The original quote for this was slightly more than $37,000. But we were recently informed that that had expired actually a couple of months ago now, and the price has increased. So the resolution amendment that we're proposing would be in the amount of $43,897,
Holy cow.
which is a significant price increase due to parts and shipping. But Colin had direct communication, so I'll defer to his.
Yeah, I mean,
What's the amount, Mark? 40?
It'll be $43,897 is the revised quote that's effective today.
Colin McCulloch, Library Director. Yeah, the vendor, the proposed vendor informs me that because of fluctuations in the price of parts and components for our alarm system, the initial quote was no longer good. And so they provided a revised quote.
So would we have to go back out to bid with that much difference?
The only other bid we have, I believe, was in excess of 15,000 more.
It was more than
Yeah,
that.
it was more than $60,000. That's a bid from the vendor that currently services our alarm system.
And that wouldn't change if we go out to bid again.
Correct. So
But legally, do we have to? I think that's what Dave said.
well, I think this wasn't a request for proposal. This was the director going out and seeking 3 quotes. Only was able to obtain 2, the one that is our current provider and a second that provides alarm systems at other municipal buildings.
It was also done in consultation with the fire department. Obviously, there's a level of expertise there that I don't have.
Yep.
So I followed their guidance on.
So it doesn't have to go to an RFP.
Correct. And an American Rescue Plan proposal here is treating the library not necessarily as an internal governmental unit, but as a nonprofit beneficiary.
I just don't understand why it doesn't have to go for an RFP. That's what I don't understand.
Mr. Solicitor?
I would think unless
Please move your microphone.
unless the resource recovery doesn't permit that, I would think that would have to go to a bid because you're looking at a difference between 43,897 minus 37,206. You know, you're looking at more than 10% differential, so you may get more bids.
They never even put it out to bid to begin
Well,
with.
again, unless there's something through the American Rescue Plan funds that doesn't authorize going out to bid, I would assume that like anything else in the municipality,
That's what it bid.
it's $37,000 and there's nothing to go through. There's no co-op with the state on this one, is there?
Chief Barone knows on that.
So if, yeah, it's precision alarm on the master price agreement.
The price index, right?
I don't believe you said that either of the
No, they're not.
companies were
Yeah,
on the MPA.
I think we should start out with going out to bid first.
Even though it's you know, I guess being under the category of the nonprofit organization, it's still coming before the council on a resolution as it relates to the payment of monies that are coming through the council system, through the federal government. So I think it'd have to go out to bid to get the best price, even if the only two entities are bidding again. I mean, at least you're being transparent as what's going on with the money.
I'm just concerned that it didn't go out to bid.
We have no problem doing that. I just believe it was a matter of timeliness and not that that's an excuse to bypass the bidding process, but previous matters through the library system obtained quotes as opposed to the RFP process.
Yeah, but I think what Tim's saying is because they're nonprofit, they can do that on their own as long as they're paying for it.
Right.
But once it comes this way, it's supposed to go to bid.
Right. So again, this part of the rescue plan and treating them as a beneficiary organization, we're not part of the bid process. We're just providing the funding for something that they're handling internally. So
if it goes out to bid through the council, the prevailing wage and everything else could come into play and it could actually increase it. But if we put the money towards a nonprofit for that item, they can hire the.
similarly to what we did for the American Legion
That's,
Post, we treated them as a nonprofit beneficiary. They handled their procurement through their rules. We were just the
But
funding
again, if
source.
the American Rescue Plan funds allows that to happen with a nonprofit under the umbrella of municipality, and it's been done in the past, you won't have to do it. My only concern is you got a 17% difference and with the 37,000 to the 43,000 without a bid. And again, you don't know if anyone's going to complain after the fact. But again, if the American Rescue Plan funds allows this to happen with a nonprofit, much like the American Legion, that's a little different, but
Is it
the American,
possible for us to pass this? with-
you could table it, sure, and find out.
Mark had asked me in the first instance, what purchasing requirements we were subject to. And the only ones we're subject to or that we take action on are in connection with our appropriation from the town. So the town has purchasing requirements, which we follow, obviously.
Yeah.
But since this falls outside the town appropriation, and as I understood from Mark, this was an allowable process for the
that's-
ARPA
This is
funds.
also federal though. so
The only thing I could suggest is the American Legion doesn't have any town employees, but the Westbrook Library does, correct?
We're not a department of the town, we're an affiliate of the town.
Right, but if someone asked the question of any of your employees, if they were town employees in the town pension system.
I don't know, that's a gray area. So
Right.
for example, none of my employees are in the same union as the rest of the town employees.
Well,
So I think
Well,
we've always existed in this kind of,
What I was asking Tim is, can we approve it with the, as long as Mark gets approval from the APRA people that it's appropriate?
if you amend the current resolution to the 43,000 and then pass it with the caveat that the manager is going to get approval that this can be accomplished under the American Rescue Plan funds, yes, you can. But that's the caveat. He has to get approval.
Yeah.
I mean, as a beneficiary, we can do it.
Well-
So,
As treating them as a beneficiary organization, I believe that we can do it. To me, the question becomes, and it could be a valid concern of you all, is should they follow a different procurement process? It doesn't need to be our typical RFP, like we would do it here through a regular department. It's their procurement process. So if they would do an RFP to make people feel better, I don't know if they do them, then they could do it. If they use a practice of obtaining 3 quotes or using an MPA,
Under the statute, the library, under the general laws, can't you utilize that index, the state index?
yes. Neither, again, I would say that I followed the advice of the fire department in terms of who were the most qualified, the most appropriate vendors to take care of this issue for us. Those were the companies I approached based on those recommendations. So, and one of those estimates came in considerably higher than the
Sure.
first one.
Yep.
And that the lower of the two estimates is the one that has now.
And the same thing, the
Increased.
same thing may happen, but if you're using a procurement process that's been approved by Rhode Island general laws for libraries.
But as I said, we have no internal procurement process other than the one that applies to town funds appropriated
Well,
from
my
the town of
suggestion would
West
be
Warwick.
is either to table it or approve it with the caveat that there'll be a presentation to the council that it's approved under the American Resource Plan Funds Act. So as a nonprofit organization under the umbrella of the town, you're going to approve with the caveat, either it's approved or it's not. If it ends up not being approved, then it won't be approved.
I really don't want to drag it out another 2 weeks. and
No.
drag it out from there,
No.
'cause I don't know when you get the original quote, but if it went up that much, you know.
Unfortunately, I'm surprised, yeah, this says
from
June
June.
22nd,
Yeah,
and it's too
yeah.
bad that it does say it was only on good for 30 days. I
Yeah,
would wish
so-
that they could have.
So as a due diligence matter, I checked back in with the company concerned. I mean, I wasn't anticipating an increase on that kind of scale either.
I find it hard to believe in 60 days it went up that much. That's.
The vendors claim is that there's been a great deal of fluctuation in the price of parts and
And that's
components for
true.
the system. And this is
Huge
the-
fluctuation.
Hmm?
It's a huge fluctuation in a short amount of time.
I agree,
But know,
I agree with you. It's a
You're beholding,
significant
you're
fluctuation.
beholding to.
But again, I'm in no position
No,
to speculate about.
Is there a safety issue or concern that we have?
The-
at
the
this
sys-
point in
the-
time?
The system, both the West Warwick Fire Department, who looked at the system when they came out to conduct a fire drill at the end of 2021, and the company who inspects the fire alarm system, who were the company who provided the other estimate, both described the system as being at the end of its life. So the person from the fire department said, "Oh, an antique," when he came out. So I do believe there is a timeliness issue. So
And I agree. That's why I think we should do the caveat. Now, if Mark makes a phone call within the next day or two and it's approved and it's already covered by us, he just has to report to us at the next meeting saying that, talk to so-and-so, and they said, yeah, it's upset.
So we were not looking to, as the library is not looking to circumvent any kind
No,
of
no, no,
process.
no,
We
no,
were
no,
looking
no. No.
to take advantage of the availability of these funds in the most timely and efficient way possible. So.
They not have an antiquated system.
All right, any other discussion?
So the resolution is going to be amended to say,
Change the dollar amount first.
and assuming approval of the methods used as confirmed by the town manager. Is that correct?
And I think Timmy's saying do it in 2 different votes. Change
Two
it.
different, change the dollar amount, number one. Number two would be to approve it with the caveat that under municipal contracts, municipal libraries either follow the bidding process or they don't. However, what would trump that would be is if this American Rescue Plan Funds allows for the non-bid. But right now, the way it's looking in the municipal contracts, Rhode Island General Law 4555, municipal libraries must follow Rhode Island General Law 4555 regarding purchases. So, but again, if the federal law trumps that because of what it's for, that we may be able to bypass that. So you're going to change the dollar amount first, and then you're going to approve it with the caveat about the information that manager's going to get.
So I would make a motion to change the dollar amount in resolution, I don't know the number, regarding the library fire alarm system to 43,897. 43,897.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor on changing?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
And then I would make a motion to approve this resolution with the caveat and upon the town manager
Getting approval.
getting approval or making sure that the proper procedures were followed in obtaining the bids.
Do I have a second?
Oh, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you,
Council.
Colin. Upcoming appointments, sewer use board review, appointment to fill vacancy as an alternate member for a 3-year term. Anna, hold on, Anna, I got one thing to say before I allow public comment. Sewer use board of review, appointment to fill a vacancy as a regular member for a 3-year term. Zoning board appointment to fill vacancy as alternate member for a term ending in July 27. Public forum, and I would like to,
Yep. the zoning-
yes, so that'll be scratched. Public forum, I would like to hear from Mr. Dennison very first.
May I speak on that?
Go ahead.
First, yeah, and I would actually very much like to hear some from Mr. Dennison too. I want to make sure that everyone understands that I believe we should honor Matt. I believe it should be done in a process where we do get input from others. I'm not trying to hold anything up. It's clearly not political in any way, shape, or form in my mind. It is I find that the more input I get from people, sometimes I hear things that I haven't even thought about. And maybe we can come up with even a better idea or a better solution. And that's all I'm seeking. And I feel it's important that I say that.
First, I'd like to thank you. Excuse me. I promised my wife I was going to be a spectator going forward, and I wasn't going to speak. That's become a little difficult. Quite honestly, and I know business is business. The 4 of you sitting here right now, I consider you all friends. You've been supportive to my family and our cause. And like any disagreement among family and friends, it's uncomfortable. I get where you're coming from. Let me give you a little bit about what I think about this. And again, I'm kind of going against my own rules here because like I said, I wanted to be a spectator, and I don't want to be considered somebody who's trying to influence this one way or the other. I believe in the end, this is going to get done. I really do. The way we get there is the question. A little bit about Matthew. You all know Matthew, but I'll give you a little bit about him and why this is important to the town, why I feel it's important, not just to my family, but the town. I'll go back to 8th grade. Matthew was a very talented, high-end hockey player. 8th grade is that time where you need to make a decision about your high school. And knowing that there were schools, and Justin, I don't mean to insult you here, knowing that there were schools that offered a much higher level of hockey, we offered that to Matthew. We said, do you want to go to a Hendricken or a LaSalle or even a Mount St. Charles? And we asked him to take some time and think about that. And he did that in 8th grade. He came back to us a week later, and he came to us and sat us down, and he said, I thought about it, and I want to be with my friends. He said, I'm going to be the captain of the West Warwick hockey team someday. In 8th grade, he said that. And I think this memorial, and there might be some concerns about how kids view this and how they interpret this. The way I envision them interpreting this is that they can look at Matthew, and let's be honest, right? Coventry guy. There's a stigma attached to this town. And I've said this in public forums before. I couldn't be more proud to be a resident of this town. And in many ways, my son is a better man than I am, because the amount of pride he has for this town, which I think we helped instill in him, became very evident when he had that discussion with us. He wanted us to know that he was going to lead this hockey team, and that he did. Even as a sophomore, he led that team to a state championship. So when I envision kids looking at this memorial, the ones that might be dropped off for high school or middle school or come into the rink for a hockey tournament or a game, even the little ones, I want them to ask questions about Matthew, and I want them to understand exactly what he was all about, which was leadership, toughness, community, friends, and family. And those are the stories we can tell. Everybody knows the story of how Matthew perished. He and Kevin were doing nothing wrong. They were living the lives of 17-year-olds who were searching for answers to their future. And when I think about this project, again, I don't want to be the one pushing this. I really don't. I think we all know how I feel about this project. It's an honor. That's the way I look at it, is that my family is honored that this town is even considering putting a memorial up on public land, on the town's property. That's something special. We've gone through the most horrific thing a family can go through. And to know that the community is even considering this is a tremendous honor. And I'm humbled by that. You know, if this were 8 months ago, prior to this whole thing happening, I could get up here and I could give you my opinion on anything you're talking about tonight. And it would be a strong opinion. I don't want to go down that road. I will give you my opinion though. Excuse me. When it comes to the precedent that was set, it appears, I haven't done the research, but listening to you folks tonight, it appears the rec committee is the precedent for this type of project. I already said I think it's going to get done no matter what. There's a lot of time between now and the completion of whatever project this becomes, especially if there's a statue. If there's a statue, it's going to take a long time. That doesn't happen overnight. We talked about stakeholders. I don't think there's a larger stakeholder than Mark and Brenda Dennison. So if it's okay, I would like to be part of that meeting next week. If for nothing else, then just remind people what this is about. But I'll give you my opinion. I think if you're going to have, and I know we're not going to call it a committee, but we're going to have a meeting. If you're going to have a meeting where people are going to provide their thoughts and decisions are going to be made upon those thoughts, I think that should be done on the rec committee side with those same people giving their input, and that input being taken into account by those who make the decisions on the rec committee. Just my 2 cents. Again, I didn't want to get up here and be political. I hope I'm not being political. I just want you to know what this means to my family and what I think it can mean to the community and the town. I think kids can look at that statue or that memorial or whatever it becomes, and I want them to ask questions about Matthew. And look, Matthew wasn't a perfect kid. His room right now is the same disaster it was on February 12th. We can't touch his room. And if I showed you a picture of his room, it would be like any other 17-year-old boy. And as a parent, I would be ashamed to show that picture in public, right? But now it's a special place. And I think at the top of the hill here, we could have another special place. And I think with knowing the qualities, the good qualities of Matthew, because there were some bad qualities too, with the messy room and you know, the late homework and all that stuff. But he was a kid who had a lot of good qualities. And like I said, in a lot of ways, I think he was a better man than me because it was all about this town for him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Hello, everyone. Justin Lake, 49 Donald Davis Drive, West Greenwich, Rhode Island. I'm the vice president of the Matthew Dennison Charitable Foundation. Obviously, you guys all know how much this means to me. I thank you all for putting it through to erect something and creating some type of committee. I just want to speak to everyone in this room right now. We've put this family through enough. They've been through enough. Let's try and keep it calm and respectful for the rest of the night. I'd appreciate it. And I'm sure Mrs. and Mrs. Dennison would too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just state your name and address for the record.
Hannah Spodnick, Carpenter Court. For a little change of attitude here tonight, I want to say something positive that's happened in this town. Seems to be a good night for it. After about 20 years of waiting for my street to be repaired, because when the bike path was put in, they removed a drainage system that consequently flooded my property year after year after year and did over $40,000 in damage. But I refused to sue the town. I just kept begging. I went through every town manager we have ever had. And finally, hi, Mark. Look at that smile. Last year, this project was scheduled. It was delayed to this year because the street was going to be done basically in tandem with this project. Unfortunately, the street got booted again this year, but after that torrential downpour yesterday, the drain, the beautiful drain that was installed on that street worked like a charm. There is no water in my yard. My yard is not a lake. The people on the street are thrilled. The property across the street is thrilled. And I just want to say that it started roughly because I got a call from Freddie that said 90% of DPW was out sick. I was like, excuse me? In a heat wave, they're all sick this week? It's okay. And then all of a sudden, 4 people with Mr. Caldwell showed up on my street and they started working and they worked like there was no tomorrow. And when I say they did an absolutely magnificent job, I mean, usually you could tell on the bike path when you're getting into Coventry because it's big difference. Now we have a spot that we can brag about. It looks absolutely beautiful. And I really, really, really appreciate this. I think we should have more projects like this where that bike path can look just like the rest of it that goes into another town. But this definitely was a very successful project. I am very happy about it. I would like to make a special mention of Ronnie, who's the equipment operator, who did pretty much most of the work because it was a lot of work to be done there with the backhoe. Wonderful job, came out perfect, and it really, really makes a difference. So something good. Now, enough of that. Let's move on. As far as number 1, the legal counsel report, I'm just curious, Mark, you said you knew about this a while ago. Why didn't you bring that up around here? Because that's something I think the citizens in this town might have paid attention to a little more.
It's all up at the State House. We had no control over it.
What do you mean we have no control over it? We're taxpayers. We can, voice our opinion if it was something that was still being voted on.
It's all on their own agendas anyway. It's out there. The public can see it. It's not something that, we can make a difference on down here because they do what they want to do up at the State House. We just have to live with the results of it, kind of like on the federal level.
Yeah, sometimes movements start when people speak up. That's all. I wish I had known because I would have been up there objecting. And the other thing is on number 4. And this is to you, David, to ask of your legal counsel. If I look at number 4 on the agenda, I would not have known that you were taking a vote tonight. And in the Open Meetings Act, which everybody in this room should read and understand and not have to question how many people have to be in a room to make a quorum, you guys should know all this. So I'm asking, is this a violation or not? I believe it is. I don't think that vote is viable. I think number 3 and number 4 did not clearly state that you would be taking a vote on anything tonight on those subjects. And I'm not doing this to bust anybody's chops, but I can't just sit here and watch these violations happen and nobody do anything. Because there's going to be some type of a filing from somebody.
Is that a violation, Mr. Williamson?
Town clerk puts under the agenda the asterisk, please know any matter listed on this agenda may be acted upon by the town council. New business, consideration of approving, consideration of instructing. Under the agenda item that was acted upon by the town council with a vote. So I would disagree with what the person at the podium is saying.
So, okay, so you're telling me that because it doesn't state that there's a vote that's going to take place, you're saying that that's clear to the public. when they read this agenda.
So right on top of the agenda, it says, please note any matter listed on this agenda may be acted upon by the town council.
I understand that part.
And we acted upon 3 and 4.
Okay. I don't think it's going to be a legal vote, but we'll see. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now because I think everybody's had enough tonight.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Oates, 6 Colonial Way. Tim, I have a legal opinion, I guess I'm just looking for. David, I understand that you didn't want to go to the meeting because there was 2 other council persons there and that would have been a violation. Is that?
It's not a violation.
Oh.
If I wanted to speak and I know those 2 were speaking that night, if I wanted to speak and I knew it was going to be possibly on the next agenda, I probably wouldn't have been able to speak my opinion or state my facts or anything like that.
That I don't understand, that you,
Just,
do you
it's
give up?
almost like, Tom, if I went to a planning board meeting, Al has strongly advised every single council member up here, and that's why Councilman Licciardi actually got his ethics, ruling from the ethics committee on regards of him, and he recuses himself for everything now when it comes to planning and zoning. So if I came to planning, unless it, it might have been something to do, like, let's talk about Harris Ave condominiums, okay? I should not be getting up and speaking on behalf of Harris Ave condominiums.
correct.
So, because it's the same thing, I should not be speaking on the monument that's being installed. So it was kind of like the same type of situation.
But we've had situations before. This is the part that I'm not sure where the legal issue is. You're the president of the town council. You're a councilman 24/7, you're a councilman. However, we've had often times where one of you will walk out the door, come around the block and approach the podium to speak as Joe Citizen, not council person at this time. And so you've taken yourself kind of off that record
Can you give
and
an
made
example
yourself
of
a
that?
citizen. Like,
Can you give an example of that? If that has to do with Councilman Licciardi, it's because he recused himself, he doesn't vote on any matters, he walks around, he does discuss it. And that's the only one I do recall that I remember.
yeah, well, I think it's happened a couple of times. For some reason, I think Mr. Messier did that once a little while back too. But had to discuss something, but didn't want it to be an issue. But do you actually give up your right to speak as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as a resident of our town? You have to zip it when you're among the other people? That's the question I wanted the legal
Again,
opinion on.
I cannot sit there and no council member can sit there and come up here and try to, if I wanted to make a change, if I felt that it should be brown instead of blue. And tried to influence these other 3 or 4 or whoever, that can be, somebody could write that over to the Board of Elections or the Ethics Commission and say, hey, this is what's going on. I mean, it goes on.
That makes it difficult for all of you guys to
It's been a complaint from all of us. It sucks.
be unable to
The
voice your
law-
opinion
the law
as a
kinda
citizen.
Sucks at times, Tom. It
So,
really
okay,
does.
but I just wasn't sure if it was a very legal thing or because, recusing yourself and walking around to speak as Joe Citizen and not council
And
person.
sometimes we're on the agenda. Like, for instance, if somebody's coming for a business license or a liquor license or whatever it may be, they might have somebody where they recuse themselves and they might have somebody come up and question, should that person get a liquor license or is the liquor license? They have the right at that time because they recused themselves to come over here and say, this is what I'm doing, a ban till midnight. And yes, I have a liquor license. And yes, so they might have to recuse themselves and speak on their behalf because they're on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Also, the meeting Tuesday at 4:30, is that meeting open to the public?
That's Mark's meeting. He would have.
I mean, in my opinion, I was trying to keep it not as a committee, but it was just a initial work group to get some basic information exchanged. And then it can go wherever it may. I mean, I'm definitely not trying to steer the ship for the entirety of this project, just trying to get the initial players at the same table.
Thank you. And my last point, and Mr. Dennison, I'm not trying to speak because I really don't know your family all that well, but it's my understanding that Matt, I think he was born on center ice and on skates before he could walk. And just that's his heart, that's his life. This is about a hockey player and his greatness at the sport and nothing to do with his academic career. I really don't understand why the school department is so tied into this. If you want to talk back about other children that have lost their lives, bless them all. I throw up 8 names that I just scratched down here a few minutes ago. Matthew Theroux, Nicholas LaRock, Adam LaRock, their little friend Corey, that all burned up in the fire. Jesse Pimentel got run over by one of our garbage trucks. And David Wojcik and Janet Firth and Brian Messier, who we did have a monument for Brian Messier until it was tossed down the embankment at Flat Top. But there's never been any monuments for all these kids. And you know, we do a monument, put names up. We're going to have to leave blanks for one of our children that's going to get killed tonight or next Thursday night or what have you. The future, it's just a heartbreaking thing. And I just don't see if we start going back and offer this to all parents. I mean, the LaRock boys, their parents burned up in that fire. Nobody's there for them except their sister, you know, my goddaughter who escaped that fire. I just don't understand the reason, because it's going to be at the Civic Center, which is a total and separate entity from the school department and the town. And I just don't see the pushback myself
Alan,
personally.
That could be another, I mean, Alan.
Tom.
Tom, it can be another discussion of how far back. Could it be 10 years? Could it be 20? Because let's face it, there's been deaths in this town, for God knows how long, right?
It's
Since
never ending.
It is. And
It's the cycle of
so
life.
that's something that has to be discussed too.
Mhm.
Like, how far back do you want to go?
Right,
You know?
but the whole idea, you know, I don't understand going back for students. And like I said, God bless them all. No parent should have to put a child in the ground. But this happened to be for a young man who was a hockey star that lost his life, and putting a monument up at the place where he learned the sport in our town. That's all I have. Thank you.
Alan Palazzo, 5 Robin Lane. And I'm going to begin tonight with kudos to the West Warwick Police Department for 2 items. They have continuously been keeping the town informed as to the status of Wakefield Street paving. I just wish the paving actually matched the picture, because it would never go away. It'd be like a Roman road. But they keep putting it out and they updated it. So that's one. Part 2 is there was an attempted break-in on my section of the town. I believe it was yesterday. And the West Warwick Police Department apprehended the culprit. So thank you. I'm not sure if a lot of people know about the break-ins in the cars. This was rather blatant. They were apprehended, but perhaps a reminder on like the Warwick PD does, lock your cars all the time. That being said, with regard to the town and paving, I understand the rain and the delays in Main Street. It's my understanding that I guess between $600,000 and $800,000 of town funds are being expended on Main Street, State Road. Is that our town?
That's our road. Mark, if you want to explain it.
There's a significant portion of Main Street that the town controls, namely between Cohasset Avenue and New London Avenue to London Avenue to LaGris Avenue, and then from West Warwick Avenue to the gazebo.
Okay.
That's all town road. We own it, we plow it. So we're responsible for maintaining it. So
No problem.
that's where they'll be working, starting hopefully tomorrow,
Oh.
delayed from today.
I don't know.
Well, they
about-
already started.
With the
actually.
rain, we've got rain on and off.
They
for
lowered all the
next 14
structures, so
days.
hopefully tomorrow, if not the next day, the larger machinery will be here.
Okay, along the same line, what is going on in Providence Street? I grew up in Natick.
Can I ask a
And-
question on that? Can I ask a question on that topic? That you-
Providence Street?
No, the one before that. But
Main Street.
can I ask a question on that topic? Queeset Avenue, Main Street, will that be the portion that's going by the Historical Society?
Main Street is between,
Right.
that's
So we're
the
doing-
first section, right?
All right, so I'll call you tomorrow with that.
And there's also a CDBG for drainage
Yep,
there too.
Yeah,
that-
I'm aware of that.
That's pending that we'll handle.
Okay, I think I have the answer, but I'll ask tomorrow.
Okay, with regard to Providence Street, Natick, Ella Barber Shop, the road has been significantly narrowed
That's at the bottom of the hill.
halfway down the hill.
But the
And
state's
if-
doing a wall reconstruction.
Who is doing the wall reconstruction?
It's a state project.
Okay, because there are a lot of orange barriers on the other side of the wall, and that's what I assumed. I drove by there, but no one seems to know any idea when that's going to be done, because the state has this, LVD starting projects all over the state and nothing gets done. And what happens if that wall actually collapses and we lose Providence Street? I just want that because no one seems to know. There's no word
Their
out there.
timetable, but they officially started it probably about 2.5 weeks ago.
That's right.
Yeah, and the barriers are out there, but there's usually, I thought Alviti was gonna put signs up everywhere. This project being handled by RIDOT, it's gonna cost this.
Nice for the expense of that.
Yeah, all right. Now, Mr. Knott's not gonna like this. And Mr. Bourget, with regard to the Quaker Drive plat, Sycamore, Quaker Drive, Shady Hill. Last year, they did some work. They stopped working there now. And I was told that that was Kent County Water. I went to Kent County Water. The man went there. He said, we're doing Cypress. This does not belong to us. This belongs to, I guess, Rhode Island Energy. Now, I call them. I haven't got a call back, but winter's going to be approaching. We've got the rain. The potholes on those roads are getting bigger and bigger. At least I don't want to put it on DPW because they're not responsible for those potholes. It looks like the Mujia Pass after a B-52 raid, but somebody needs to get that done before you get a lot more claims. So.
Right, so that project, again, there's a significant amount of projects between the Water Authority and now Rhode Island Energy. Whichever one did that.
That's
I
what
assume it's probably right. It is probably.
It was AGI who did over there.
That did the gas work. So that's, I can make inquiries, but I can't control their construction schedule. If there are deficiencies in the road, they're responsible for them. They did so many square feet, so they're responsible for paving those roads. I understand that utility work has, Jeff may be able to speak better on this, but there are settlement timeframes that they need.
No, this has nothing to do with settlement
Right, I mean,
timeframes.
The cuts in the road and.
This has
they
nothing
need-
to do with the
they need
cuts in
to-
the
they
roads.
need to
These
let
are
it
just
settle
straight.
For 2 months or whatever, 60 days, 90 days before they'll come in and pave it.
But the issue is the potholes that have developed from their equipment
Right.
working in that area, and they're getting bigger and bigger. And then we're on Sycamore and
We can
Quaker.
call them and they'll be responsible for
Those
fixing
are
it.
the original roads when that plat was built, back in the 40s and 50s.
No, 1970.
No, it was earlier than that.
1970. I had a girlfriend on 105 Quaker Drive.
I was.
What was her name? Yes, yeah.
And you told me Kent County Water, wrong answer.
No. You asked about Monterey. Monterey is Kent County Water. That's what I told you. You asked about Monterey. That's Kent County Water. Over there is Rhode Island Energy now, and AGI was doing the work. Last year, because all those roads were on the list from the bond money, and they were taken off because they're gonna be doing all that repaving. So we're able to utilize that money elsewhere. But that's all supposed to be done by the winter this year. Supposed to be. Last I heard, that's what Jeff.
It's the same thing, it's the same thing with East Main and,
And remember, after December 21st, he's the target.
And on, as far as Monterey goes, that's the water authority and all that's supposed to be done.
That they're handling that. They stood right up. And when I went to them about Quaker Drive and Sycamore, I got a call an hour later. They were actually there checking it out and saying, not us. So,
Miscommunication between the two of us, but they're definitely separate.
okay.
Just
We-
some of the little side streets off of Queens Avenue, all those up there, that's all Rhode Island Energy.
All right. Another item with regard, I've seen it on two sections of the town, actually three. Seems like we're starting to develop a rat problem. Okay. On the Coventry, West Warwick border, there's been reports of large ones down in Phoenix and down in River Point. Before we turn into Cranston or Providence, I think you guys need to become proactive. I don't know if it's minimum housing or what, but we might need an eradication program, maybe use America Recovery Act funds for it, but something needs to get done. I mean, I remember shooting rats down at the town dump, now River Point Field, way back when.
Was that with your girlfriend or is that, no, is that, yeah, I'm
No, no,
sorry.
no.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't help myself. That's that's my. yeah. So-
She didn't
so,
like guns.
Well, actually, Alan, that's been an issue that has cropped up in the last 3 or 4 months. And Mark has had conversations, minimum housing has been out. We had a situation where it's not a river, the stream, the brook.
down in
Yes,
for Holy Ghost,
Yes,
but
and that was drained down because of the drought. That caused some problems. There was some work being done there. It was also determined that there was someone feeding some livestock in that area, and that became a problem. So Mark has had conversations with the minimum housing director.
I'm not
on a
sure if
couple
you're
of these.
aware of, I want to say it was McNiff Street or Anderson, somewhere over there, but it's, that's the Coventry West Warwick border. And we don't want it to come over.
stay behind lines is what you're gonna say?
Yeah.
No.
So the minimum housing director, we've asked that very question. Should there be a program to make sure he doesn't feel that it's actually, and Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't feel that there had been more complaints than normal, quite honestly. But maybe they've been in.
I mean, he
more
did
populous-
report that it seems to be escalating, but speculated that it's an environmental change, the drought, wherever they're scavenging further out for water and for food. So he thinks there are an increase in sightings, and he does respond and try to locate the source of the problem. Typically, it's obviously a private property owner that's exacerbating the problem, and he tries to educate and rectify that.
So Alan, my situation down in Phoenix, on that street, I went to 5 different homeowners and 4 said they haven't seen a single one. So it might have been a situation where 1 or 2, and they claim the dumpsters, they claim it's the Holy Ghost dumpster, but there's 3 dumpsters and the closest one is Max Bowaway. It's attended right to the backyard. Holy Ghost took their dumpster, far as I know, brought it up, made sure there was no holes. They've been instructed to make sure it stays closed from the building official's office.
I'm
And
just
then there's the
bringing
gas
this to the
station. No, but I-
attention.
but
We don't want an epidemic like in.
No, we don't.
We
Where you could be
agree.
on TV in
We try to
Cranston.
stay on top of it, but I did reach out to, 4 out of 5 people on that street, the one that complained, and then 4 others, when I was walking around talking, I know pretty much almost everybody on that street. And they said right out that they haven't had a problem. So I'm just hoping it's
The
just that
minimum-
one.
The minimum housing director also puts a letter or flyer out to the people in the neighborhood. I know there was a problem in Natick last year. There was a problem in that Phoenix, right off Wakefield Street earlier, where David's talking about. So a flyer went out and the minimum housing guy has gone out and looked.
Okay. Another item, furniture on the sidewalks. All over town, and the taxpayers probably end up moving it. What do we do about that? There's, free I'm not sure if it belongs to you, going down Cohasset near,
Which side?
Which side?
on the right
Was it
side,
Inside or outside?
on the Cohasset inside. This is at the bottom of the hill though. Okay, it's been there for a while. I'm not sure if it's gone near, the Napa Parts Store. There was stuff up on the sidewalk there, but it seems like it's popping up all over. And how do we as taxpayers avoid having the DPW pick up the fee for disposal? I mean, I understand the one near Napa, the person moved and just dumped it on the sidewalk, but can't we have provisions where that there's a lien put on it? I know we do it, hey, no closing until this stuff is gone and you've satisfied the taxpayers. I just wanted to point that out over and over again.
So Alan, East Main was one that's very highly in my ward. It's been over a year, across from Guild Tool. They've been to court. They were getting fined $1,200 a day. And ironically, last week, they were all putting that stuff in their cars to dispose of it. I don't know where, but they cleaned up East Main last week. It was through the court system, and that's unfortunately sometimes takes a little while.
Do we ever get to $1,200 a day?
Well, that's beyond the closing of the house when it comes time. Because we had that situation on East Greenwich Avenue. For years, those houses were vacant, and before they could sold, they had to settle with the town before we can go any further.
All right, I just want to make sure that the taxpayers are held harmless. I have,
Anywhere there's apartments, it gets hectic around the first of the month.
no problem. Okay, tax freeze for the elderly, options, any and all. I've been bringing this up for 6 months now, and we're looking into it. Have we, are we looking through the Alice in Wonderland looking glass? Are we doing something for the elderly in this town? It frustrates me when I see, my 80-year-old mother had to sell her home, and this is impacting us. And I wish I could see it. And when I post things like this, I get feedback on social media. And that's why I'm up here every meeting that I attend. And I'm going to keep hammering you guys on this. It doesn't have to be a total freeze on everybody, but look at the different options. I'm not sure if it was the last meeting and the meeting before, I asked for how much does $1 in the tax rate bring in revenue? And we have an answer on that?
So just to give you a heads up, Alan, I've asked and requested for numbers from Sal. I think everybody from the council has, I hope they had a chance to read them. I'm kind of looking for it right now. There's two, I want to, and again, it's rough numbers, 2,066 seniors in the town of West Warwick that utilize the senior exemption now. And I asked Sal, based on, and again, remember, when we don't have a tax increase, the seniors get no luxury, right? Because now if they're frozen. I asked Sal to base it on a 2% tax increase over 5 years and how much that would cost the taxpayers. And basically after a 5-year, it'd be compounded that all the other citizens of West Warwick would have to roughly come up with $5 million, which would be almost like a 6% tax increase on them. So we have to look at, and then on that list also has how the salary ranges, how many are in this salary range, how many are in that salary range. And that, once I get it, if you want, I can forward it to you as close as you want, but there's a lot of, and again, I'm asking for the information. If the council wants to move forward with it, it's up to the council if they want to move forward with it.
I believe you should be considered because I happen to be cleaning out old stuff from my garage to throw away. And I came across a newspaper article from 2002. Guess which municipality had the highest tax rate in the state back in 2002? You're sitting at it, at this council. Okay, it surprised me that we were number one back then.
And I'm a believer in zero-based budgeting. Just because you spent $300 this year doesn't mean you start at $300 and add 6%. How about looking at possible reductions? Because this town, I'm proud of this town. Okay. When I was at Pilgrim, they asked me where I went to school, and I say West Warwick, and I got this look. I said, no. Okay. You know, I played football for Monk Masnicki. West Warwick was a great town. And it bothers me because I was a Wizard way back when. And I don't want to be Central Falls. We're starting to look like that. The town hall, I've been going back 2 years now. What does it take to pressure wash this town hall and make it look good? I also just happened to see North Kingston, somebody posted, hey, look at the great tiles we did at the municipal complex in North Kingston. Looks really nice. Instead of doing carpet, why not do tiles and do it right with the American Rescue Funds? I mean, my understanding is 87% of that budget hasn't been spent. So maybe do something with it. Same thing with the schools, the roads, the Don Rock Bridge down here. Factory Street is nice. However, the center paction of the bridge is terrible. That should be addressed at some point in time. Along the same lines, we're talking about rats, back to the rats issue. The gazebo coming here tonight. Big piles of garbage bags outside the gazebo, you know. Hello. But it shouldn't be there. Same thing with the Factory Street playground. The quote vandalism up there occurring to that playground. It cost double the original estimate. I can imagine what would happen, and I've just saw the rough draft of that statue, and I think it will serve as an inspiration to the kids in this town, but I would hate to see graffiti on that. And if, you know, you pointed, you were up there and the kids were telling you to pound sand, I'm old school. I'm not going to tell you how to address the issue, but somebody needs to take care of it. I'm sure the chief could take care of it. Something needs to be done to address that. And if somebody wants to be a punk, punks need to be addressed. Let me see if I have anything else on my agenda. No, I guess that's about it. Have a good night.
Thank you, Alan.
Brian, 32 Rollingwood Drive. I'm here tonight as a taxpayer. As you all know, I came up with the design for the memorial, and I'm going to take Matthew's coach Justin's advice and not try to bring Matthew's family into what I'm about to say. I think that what I witnessed tonight of watching this body debate points number 3 and 4 could have very easily been circumvented if there were better processes in place. So when the Dennisons asked me to be a part of the project, they said, what's the process? And based on my experience dealing with other municipalities, the process is typically get approval from the council for the land, then it goes before a designated committee. And my understanding in the town is that that designated committee is the Recreation Committee. And when I was asked to speak at the Recreation Committee, I specifically asked the chairman, and I specifically stood at this very podium and looked at Councilman Licciardi and said, is there a vote that's going to come out of this committee? And what I was told is that that committee doesn't have the power to vote. So I think there's a bigger issue at play of trying to, and I think the word political is the wrong word. So I'm going to use the word passing the buck between the town council to a meeting with the town manager, which I'm more than happy to be at. And Mark, I didn't respond to your email, but I will be there.
and then to have that body of people speak about something with no minutes taken. And then that committee doesn't have any voting power. And then it goes back to the Recreation Committee, who then says, okay, we take everything they say, but what about the Dennison family? And what about the donor that's building it? Are you okay with all that? And then where does it go from there? So does it go back before the council? So I think that there's like 50 roads that any person that wants to do something in this town can go down. And there's so much ambiguity. And for me to sit there, I came in here with a jacket on. I think you all saw me take my jacket off because I'm fuming, quite frankly, that I feel bad that Mr. Dennison had to sit through this as a whole. And I'm not pointing fingers at anyone up here. I think the process as a whole, excuse my language, is as piss poor as you can get. And I hope I don't offend anyone by saying that, but I think if there's anything the council should do is put together a committee to figure out what the process should be going forward. Thank you.
Alan?
One more item, and David, you're going to be turned reading here. Campaign signs. It's political season. I've had them disappear from my yard over the years. Seems like they're disappearing again, various candidates. But one item bothers me very much. It has to deal with the area down there, the Holy Ghost, where Mr. Padula and Mr. Ponte's signs were removed by DPW. And the answer was that's on town property. It's been verified that is not town property. And what was really egregious was when those signs came down, your signs went up.
Hold on.
Wait, hold on, David. Let me
Actually,
finish.
Hold on,
When I finish, you can rebut. But that's the issue. It's not town property. The signs were up. They came down by DPW workers. And I like Jeff when, but the answer given is Freddie told him there's town property and it's not. So I want to point that out. And your signs went up.
Nope.
And now you can.
Stop. So the sign was a Stephen Ponte sign, which I don't care. It was there. And I have record saying, I don't care. It's there. I really don't. Okay. Then Padula's sign went up. I happened to drive by and saw both signs gone. I asked specifically to Jeff, "Well, who took the signs down?" He said, the town did. I said, okay, but why? Because my sign goes right behind there usually, but I'm on the inside fence. The outside fence is the fence that we just replaced as a town. And secondly, my sign wasn't there yet. The Friday before.
I said it went after.
Wait a minute. Friday of Labor Day, Ponte's sign and Padula's sign went up on Friday afternoon. Goslin's sign went up Friday evening on the inside fence. So their signs were back there and I didn't care. I don't care, Alan. I really don't care about anybody's signs.
What happened to the
So
signs that the
then
town
the
took?
signs came down again Saturday, but mine stood up. I received a phone call. I said, I don't care about their signs. Put them back. Okay.
Why is the town, and I've had them taken down by quote, state ride-out workers. But my question is, who on the town DPW thinks that they're doing you a favor by doing that? And what happens to those towns? Those signs, are they returned to Padula and Ponte?
So
Are they thrown away?
in the past experience, what I have seen, anybody, and I had one of mine from Warwick, and Warwick called me because somebody put it out in the middle of the mall. It got stolen and put out in the middle of the mall island. I got the call from Warwick saying, come get your sign, so on and so forth. Okay, it's on town property. No problem. I said, I don't even know how, I'm not in Warwick, so I'll go get it. I don't care about people's signs. I don't, like, everybody's blaming me for their signs,
But
right?
what,
I can tell you honestly, I have no input on where signs can go. I don't care where signs go, as long as you're following the rules. You're not going to even hear a complaint from me. I have never filed a complaint against 8 opponents on where their signs are. Never. And everybody keeps saying, I don't let signs go on the Holy Ghost. That's funny. My opponent is sitting right to the right of me at the Holy Ghost. If anybody I wouldn't want there would be my opponent.
but my
he's sitting
question
right on the
is,
side of me. I don't have the
has
power to say, don't put signs up.
DPW been instructed
not to touch political signs. For the longest time, Mr. Williamson used to have a sign on the big tree near St. Mary's as you turned on to Church Street. And I believe that is public property too. They appear, but why does DPW have this idea unless they get a complaint to go pick them up and remove them?
It's the, from what I know, it's the law.
Oh, I understand that, but
Real
somebody.
quick, from
can take-
from my perspective, I had a conversation with Jeff. I don't feel like we need to get involved in the removal of the signs. We can make notification to the candidate saying the ownership of the areas in question are determined. Kindly remove your signs. And if we get into.
I don't think there's any problem with
If we
that.
get into a question, then it can be referred to, wherever the rules and the jurisdiction lies, can handle it appropriately, whether that's a state violation, a canvassing violation, an ordinance violation, it can go. So that's the path that the assistant director and I came up with after I was informed of their removal. We verified they weren't discarded.
Were they
We're not gonna-
returned? That's
we're
the
not gonna get into
question I
that
have.
practice.
I mean, I go to Providence and I look around and said, oh my God, it's unbelievable what happens there.
I talked to the person in question about this, and I want to say that he was very polite and very respectful, and we had a very good conversation. And I did advise him that town property per state law, that they're not allowed on town property. We maintain that property, we mow it, we put the fence up. I was under the understanding it was town property. That particular person had no problem with that. I explained the whole thing to him. I did tell him that we had the signs, we would return them. He said that was not necessary.
And it was
As
even,
far as the
it was even asked
conversation
why
went?
my sign was there. And like I said, I'm on the inside of the property, so that's not the town property.
And
And if it is, I'll go remove it. It doesn't bother me.
I spoke with
But Alan, like Jeff just said, Anna said, it's state law. And when somebody leaves something on the side of the road where it doesn't belong, it's considered garbage. Doesn't matter what it is. If you.
The question was not town property.
But, all
I
right,
just had
but,
that
but your
verified.
question was, what makes it so DPW can go and collect them? I actually called Jeff earlier today with a question because there's some up in Ward 5 that I got a complaint on. So I asked him to take care of it. I don't know what happened. He never got back to me, but that's fine. I trusted it's taken care of, and that's all that matters. But if it's on town property, it's obvious it's on town property, and the DPW driver is driving by, he has all the right in the world to stop his truck, get out, take up the sign and throw it away. They're not required to notify the campaign. It's garbage.
But if it's questionable, they need to verify that it's.
If it's questionable, yes. But if it's obviously on town property, it's garbage.
This particular case, it was.
So about the candidate and their signs. You all have to.
Good evening, Paul Richards, 39 Gardner Avenue, and I'm a member of the Recreation Committee. I've been on there with Councilman Lashardi since probably 2004, or maybe a year or two before that. Couple of things just to clarify for a lot of people who may not know what's going on with the Recreation Committee, because some of this stuff wasn't said. We're strictly an advisory board committee for the town council. So things come before us. We do the due diligence, it takes some of that stuff away from you guys because you got enough stuff on your plate. That's given to us. We do the due diligence, we bring in all the various stakeholders. And River Point, I think Park, we've done like 4 phases on that. Those had to go out for bid. We had to review those bids from all the different people that submitted them. We had to review all the various plans that they submitted with them. And we also had to obviously make sure that they conform to the bid. And within all that, once we got together, we got with the various people in the town that need to, get their approval also. So we're not just a bunch of people that make random decisions. We do the due diligence to make sure, and we make a recommendation to the council that this is a project we'd like to go forward with. This is the proposal that we think fits the build, best for the RFP or whatever went out. I mean, if we get the Dennison project, I mean, it's not a cost of the town, so it's not going to go out for a proposal. but it's going to be handled the same way as far as the due diligence is concerned, regarding making sure everything's going to conform to whatever rules and regulations that apply to wherever the memorial might be. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think some people don't quite understand the role of the Recreation Committee.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Just wanted to add to that quick too. With the committee and every meeting that's taken place, with the exception of a few recent ones, there's always been, I call it an agent from the town, which when we had a recreation director, Warren Renshouse, and was there at every meeting. And then that followed with Ray Beatty coming in. And along with the chairman, they set the tone regarding how the meeting was going to be driven. And then as, things started to unfold, I guess, and interest was gone.
You're getting.
Shaking your head, that means I'm off topic.
You're getting a little beyond for informational purposes. So I think Mr. Richards was clear in his statement. You don't need to elaborate on it any longer.
Okay.
Just that it's not an agenda item.
It's fine.
But I would agree with what Mr. Richards said, and if that's the process that's going to be followed, and that was part of my problem with new business number 3, that has not happened yet. I've not received anything from the rec committee. I don't have anything. I don't have a recommendation from them. We haven't seen that as a council. That's the process.
Can I
that's supposed to be
respond to
followed.
this now? Because now this is.
Madam Vice, again,
Offense,
you're
Mary
going,
Beth,
you're going
I'm just shut
beyond.
down, so.
But I think it's important, and I agree with what Paul.
But
I agree with what
again,
Paul said.
there's no agenda item as it relates to the Recreation
Fine.
Committee, what they do, what they
Fine.
don't do. Mr. Richards was clear from a public standpoint, what they do. If you want to put the inner workings of the Recreation Committee on the agenda, feel free, but it's just not on the agenda tonight.
That's the confusing part for me, at least, is because, I just take the new business items that came before you tonight. There were some where several people wanted to speak, they weren't allowed to speak. And then some, especially that one about the library, the person was able to speak. So at no point did anyone on the council tonight say to anyone on the Recreation Committee, hey, what came out of your meeting? Because if that was said, they would have heard that there was an overwhelming consent and approval for the design as proposed, that it needed to go through the process of having your I's dotted, your T's crossed, let the building official, the planner look at it. I think I'm not speaking out of line. I know there weren't official meetings. Mr. Reed has said that he has done recording. So I think that if the opportunity were given under that discussion item, then there would be more clarity for people that want to come to the podium and address those issues.
So can somebody verify, Mr. Reed, I'm going to ask you, Derek, you have a recording of this meeting. Where is that recording stored because it's not in the clerk's office.
Mr. President, the matter's not on the agenda. The tape recording, the minutes are not on the agenda.
Okay.
You're creating
Okay.
a problem for public
Tell me
comment.
after the meeting.
These
Derek.
guys can say what they want.
No, well, you know what, you don't want to.
It's public comment. It's not, the council can only provide for informational purposes only. They can't ask questions of the general public.
So the town does not provide us with any device to record a meeting, let alone, we don't even know how to turn on the microphones. Okay? So either my phone, it's on my phone recorded this time. Sometimes it's Chris Messier. Sometimes it's Nate Hunter. Nate Hunter wasn't available. The council doesn't provide us with what we have to do, but I'm trying to follow the rules and regulations as best as I can. And David, I'm the chair of the board. You could have easily picked up the phone. Hey, Derek, is there any minutes to the meeting? Is there a recording? Is there anything? There always is, and there's always minutes recorded, and there's always minutes submitted, and there's always minutes voted on. I follow the rules. I also asked.
My question is, where are they stored? Like, as far as if the general public wants to hear that meeting,
I'll give them to Sarah if she wants them.
that's the question.
Give me-
I have.
give
That's all
me-
I have. Like, I can't
Give
ask,
me something to
I
record
can't-
with.
I can't do a records request.
Like I said, if you don't leave the gavel, I'll bring a hammer. Same thing.
Listen, if I ask for a records request, if Alan comes in and says, I want a meeting, I want a recording of the meeting,
Okay.
okay? Doesn't know you, we shouldn't have to call you. They should be stored
then-
here in town
Then
hall.
when I have a meeting, leave me a recording device. There's got to be a tape recorder here or
They
something. I
have a
mean,
tape recorder, they have a chip.
most of this place is in
Okay, I'm
Stone
done.
Age, so.
I understand that people, they enjoy this, but this is not on the agenda. Mr. Reed can say what he wants. But For informational purposes only, that's been done. There's no need to get into the inner workings of the Recreation Committee tonight.
So in the future, Sarah, give me a recording device. And I will record it. Give me a place to leave it. I'll leave it, whatever you want. But if you don't make it available to us, then we got to do it somehow. Do we agree? And then while I'm up here, the accusation that I did what I was not supposed to do, there was no vote that night. So I didn't have to recuse myself from anything. It was open discussion and it said it on the agenda.
I just want to point out, if I put something on the agenda that I'm involved in, I would have to recuse myself. I'm just pointing that out to you.
You don't have to recuse yourself from the conversation. I asked legal advice.
Okay, you got your advice, that's fine.
So I don't appreciate the accusation, that's all.
Okay.
Jeff Roussel, 41 Sweetbriar Lane. I was listening to the town manager explain the process of his meeting concerning the Dennison Memorial, and he sounded a little confused as to what the outcome will be to his meeting. Will a report be generated that will then be given to the council members? Will it be given to the rec committee? Will that then necessitate another agenda item on a town council agenda? Will the rec committee then take those recommendations and try to recalculate their proposed memorial and then come back to you? I just think the process is not in place. And I know how slow town government can work. This is just being set up to be, we're going to be May 2023, and there will not be a shovel in the ground, and there will be a memorial someplace in Warwick. And I don't think any of us want that. So I just think we need a process in place, whether it's the town council directing the manager or the manager making a recommendation to somebody in West Warwick to get this project moving. Because I think it's in the best interest of the town that there's a memorial up on the hill in front of that ice rink. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yes, I have a question for the manager. Any update in the podium?
So I did get a call over the weekend from their head person who said they're going to provide us with a model template made out of, he told me the whatever material he's going to use that's easily manipulated to see if we like it, test it out for a few weeks. The timing works well because the carpet will be replaced in 2 weeks. And then we'll start looking at chairs, see if we like it. And then they'll finalize the plan based on the dimensions and any feedback that we get. And with a new school year and a new crew, he'll make it a priority.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the council.
I didn't ask if they were gonna design it on wheels to see if you could spin it, but but it's supposed to be so it could be canted and the microphone situation would be better with proper way to put a binder or a couple of sheets of paper without losing it. So.
Yeah, yeah, maybe over there, yeah.
That's all I have. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Have a good night.